Oh, dang it. Come on, A&M.
Jesus, A&M. My God, let's go. Sports Lounge, 161 on the air. Charlie Hildebrand, Nathan Stacken, Marcus Traxler in the offing. He's just getting done watching 60 Minutes, so he's got to get that done first. Also, we'll break down those hockey brackets, the Division I hockey tournament announced later on, but we'll interrupt that, put that on the back burner, the farthest burner away from the fire, and we'll start with college basketball. Nathan Stacken, the college basketball tournament is going on. Have you been following it?
Nope, I haven't watched 1 minute.
Well, then get the hell out of here then. Get the hell out of here because that's all we're talking about. You haven't watched one goddamn game.
No, wait a second here. You mean we aren't going to break down the Denver Broncos matching the offer from the Miami Dolphins for running back C.J. Anderson today? We're not going in depth on that?
Oh, in segment 3.
Oh, okay.
Backup running back news. NCAA tournament, getting down there. The tournament's about 2/3 done. Waiting for the Sweet 16 here. So I have 3 games left on the day. The big news with the tournament thus far, Michigan State, if they were not the favorite and they were number 2 behind Kansas, they are done. They have been knocked out of the tournament. My thing goes away here. There we go.
I really like how Maryland is going 0-15 right now against Hawaii from 3, and yet this Lehman fella just kicked the shit out of SDSU.
Yeah.
He's making everything in sight. That's tremendous.
I've said before, there's nothing I hate more than pretty boy white three-point shooters who basically just shoot threes, and I have added Lehman from Maryland to the list of white guys I hate.
How do you get away from Duke? I'll never know.
Yeah, Grayson Allen's got to be above him, though.
Cruz, yes.
Because he wanted to play in the Big Ten, I guess.
Oh, of course. Keep it regional.
I think he just forgot that Maryland went to the Big Ten. I think he still thought they were in the ACC.
Very possible. Michigan State lost to Middle Tennessee State, a team that's been, a 11 seed, 12 seed in the past. 8th time that a 2 seed has lost in the first round. And Mr. Stack, and I really didn't see this game at all. I saw a little bit of the end when, Middle Tennessee got off to a hell of a start.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, pretty much led the entire way. Looked like lots of points. They spent all their points in the first round game. Didn't score any points today. They were shut out. Did not score a point. Syracuse?
I can't remember what game I was watching. It wasn't Michigan State and Middle Tennessee State, but I saw on the I was watching Cal Hawaii, and all of a sudden I see that Middle Tennessee State's got a 15-2 lead. I'm like, holy crap! I got to tune over to this. And Upshaw was absolutely incredible. Apparently, he's the son of a former football player.
Gene Upshaw? Who's who?
I don't know. Reggie Upshaw, I think, is the dad. I don't know what he did. It sounds like he played for the Raiders, though, with a name like Upshaw.
Very good.
But this was just a phenomenal game. Michigan State never led in this one. Every time they got close, Middle Tennessee State would make some incredible shot, would knock down a 3, and it just wasn't meant to be for Michigan State. Too many bad turnovers. I don't know if they took Middle Tennessee State a little too lightly, but an absolute stunner.
I think it's the 4th biggest point spread upset as far as looking at that way. I think when Norfolk State beat Missouri, I think it was 2012, that was the biggest point spread upset, 23-24 points. So that's one way to look at it. But Charlie, Missouri that year was a 2 seed. I don't think anybody really thought they were going to win the national title. Michigan State, a lot of people thought they should have been a 1 seed. And like I said, if it wasn't for Kansas, Michigan State was the team that most people picked to win this whole thing. So is this the biggest upset in the history of this tournament?
I think, if you want to say like an upset in the Final Four's a bigger deal because it's later in the tournament, I think you could maybe make that case. But in terms of just first-round upsets, I think this is easily the biggest one ever. Because like you mentioned, that same year, Duke was a 2 seed when Missouri lost. I think they lost to Lehigh.
Yep.
And I know Iowa State lost as a 2 seed. I mean, there were some 2 seeds that were pretty good, but none of these 2 seeds were like the presumptive second or third like most favored team to win the whole thing, like Michigan State was this year. And in addition to that, like Michigan State, I don't know who's going to win, the Wooden Award and the Player of the Year. Certainly Denzel Valentine was going to be a guy who had a serious say in who gets it, though. And none of those other teams that were 2 seeds that lost also had a guy who you could literally say might be the best player in college basketball at the same. I mean, I'm not saying Valentine is. There's a few other guys who can make a claim, but I think if they're along with, being hot for the last month and winning the Big Ten Conference tournament, that I don't really think it's all that close for biggest upset ever. I mean, this was a team that everyone had already penciled into like the Elite Eight, and it was just like, well, I mean, maybe in the Elite Eight they'll get a little bit of a game, but I mean, they're easily going to go that far, and it did not turn out that way.
The only thing I would say about the only reason I would even consider putting it 2, and I would say that the biggest upset of all time would be Lehigh over Duke in terms of the first round matchup. And the only reason I say that is that even though Conference USA isn't the conference it once was, due to conference realignment, it still has a little more pull over, I think, the Patriot League. I mean, and Middle Tennessee State, it's not like they were the 4 or the 5 seed in Conference USA and in the tournament and won it. They were the 2 seed. So I would almost put Lehigh over Duke just because Duke had a lot of talent that year, and not saying that Michigan State doesn't, but the conference, if we were to rank them, I would say we would put Conference USA above the Patriot League. So I'd say the caliber of the teams there, I would almost put this one second, only to Lehigh and Duke, but it's really close. I'm certainly not going to completely oppose anyone who wants to put it at number 1.
Also, Villanova as an 8 seed beating Georgetown as a 1 seed in 1985 in the national title game.
Right. Yeah, or NC State over Houston.
Yeah. I believe Georgetown had beaten the hell out of Villanova, I think, 3 times that year already. So that's another big upset. But as far as first-round upsets go, Michigan State losing. Everybody had them at least in the Final Four, if not going a couple rounds farther than that. So they're knocked out.
I think you had some people with Virginia.
I mean, we know how we feel about this Virginia squad, trash all the way around. And you look at this Midwest bracket here. You got Gonzaga and Syracuse, 10 versus an 11. One of those teams will play for a Final Four this coming weekend against Virginia or Iowa State. So you got some crazy shit going on there. Very exciting. How's your Syracuse squad going there, Stack? And I know you were a big proponent, kind of picketing the Fargo-Moorhead area, saying Syracuse, we want them in this tournament with an RPI just shy of 70. I know you're real pleased to see them here in the second weekend of this tournament.
Well, I think I'm more so impressed with the ACC play in general. When we said show us something in terms of the conference, I believe I said Pac-12 show me something, and someone said the ACC.
What they show you?
The Pac-12 is showing me jack shit. Meanwhile, the ACC is playing phenomenal. I mean, Dayton, I probably shouldn't have put so many eggs into that Dayton basket from earlier in the season. They really cooled off late. Syracuse, it's very, very tough to go against that zone and prepare for it on just a few days, and it shows with the favorable matchup. I'm going to almost say that Gonzaga will beat Syracuse just because the Zags seem to be rolling right now. But, yeah, Syracuse has definitely played well, but they wouldn't have beat Michigan State today if they had played them. Sorry, I know we could say that, hindsight being that Michigan State just lost to a 15 seed.
Yes.
But I don't think Syracuse would be in the Sweet 16 right now if Michigan State had just taken care of business against MTSU.
And Pittsburgh.
At the same time, I don't think anybody thought that Gonzaga would beat Utah by 30 in the second round either.
No, they got pantsed. They got pantsed, as we like to say. The lone ACC team not to make the that featured 90 points. There were 98 total points scored. Numerous games this tournament have had 90 points at the half. I did not watch this game. I don't know if anybody here watched this game. This looked like the worst game ever played. I'm
going to both pat myself on the back and slap myself in the face because I said there were going to be 2 awful first-round games. And one of them I was right, and that was that Pitt in Wisconsin was truly awful, and I think I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for that. The other one I thought would be a really bad first-round game that I was not correct on was UNI in Texas. That ended up being quite entertaining. So I guess I'm betting 50-50. Yeah.
Not bad. Charlie, best game that you've seen? Or best game of the tournament in your mind?
Switching back and forth, so I don't want to pick a game that I didn't see a majority of, and there's some good games that I missed a lot of.
You saw Indiana, Kentucky.
It's either Indiana, Kentucky, or UNI, Texas. It's one of those 2, I think.
I go Little Rock, Purdue,
and
then I will give a St. Joe, Cincinnati, and Iowa Temple.
Okay, I did not see Iowa Temple.
I mean, it's more with Iowa and Temple was the finish, but you could also say that's the same thing for the St. Joe Cincinnati game because that was a last-second dunk that did not count for Cincinnati. I mean, some of these endings have been absolutely incredible.
The St. Joe Cincinnati game I did not catch because I was watching Northern Iowa, Texas, and that was my one upset that I picked. 8-9s are not upsets, 10-7s are not upsets. You pick an 11 over a 6, even though it happens 50% of the time over the last 6-7 years. That was my big going out on the limb there with the Northern Iowa winning. That was a very good game. It cooled off a little bit last 5 minutes. Things were kind of slow, but it had one of the great finishes of all time with a half-court shot to win it. Did everybody see that live? When it happened?
I saw it live. I was sitting down, like hunched over.
Not for long.
While I was playing Tiger Woods golf, but it was paused for like the last minute and a half of that game, and I just like had this flash of like an old man. I was just like I was hunched over, and I was like, "Oh my God, he made it!" And I don't know. That's basically what I did when he made the shot. I could not believe that it went in, but I was glad that it did.
Unbelievable shot. Northern Iowa pulls off a mild upset over Texas. That's in my conversation for probably top 3 best games. I did not see Purdue Little Rock. If I would have, that may have been my best game.
That Higgins fellow for Little Rock, holy cow, he is very good. I just thought of another one for Game of the Year, and it just took place today. Stephen F. against Notre Dame. That was very, very good.
For me, that was the best game that I have seen. Notre Dame and Stephen F. also good. Yep, best game that I've seen this tournament. It was within basically a 10-point range. Notre Dame led by 7. That was the biggest lead. Stephen F. Austin led by like 4 points at one point. So it was back and forth. Great game. Good finish. Wish the other team would have won.
Yes.
Stephen F. Austin. Who's the guy?
Thomas Walkup.
Thomas Walkup. Mr. Tom Walkup, built like a brick shithouse.
Mr. Lumberjack himself.
Does any guy look like the mascot of their school more than this man, Charlie? Besides maybe like Hulk Hogan or Donald Trump, looking like a Syracuse Orange, this guy looks like a goddamn lumberjack.
Yeah, that's.
I was trying to think of a Michigan State guy that looked like a Spartan, but I can't think of any. So I would agree that it's this guy with the lumberjacks.
I'm trying to think if there's any really short person from Iona that could be possibly considered a Gale, but.
A Gale. Possibly.
Yeah.
Too bad. Is it a shame Macy Michelson doesn't play for Butler?
Not going to touch that one.
Or Georgetown, have you enjoyed the John Thompson III commercials? Bulldogs, there's a lot of them.
I thought
it was great the first 6 times it was on.
And then it got old after time number 12. It's like, all right, this is garbage. I did not see Purdue Little Rock, and we talked about this. I thought the Little Rock guy at the end of the regulation, I believe, his foot was on the line. He was given 3 points instead of 2, and they reviewed it, and I have no idea how that happens. So they probably would have lost, depending on game situation at the end, if not for that. And Iowa loses the half, 32-22, Texas A&M. So we got potential Oklahoma. I mean, that's fine. I mean, A&M wasn't hard on them. Don't know how they got a 3 seed. I took them to win this game, and that's it. So
what's the bigger deal is Wisconsin up over our Xavier squad, 17-8.
I considered taking Wisconsin there because I always loved Dayton. Didn't pick them to win because they've been bad. Xavier been very unimpressed here the last couple of weeks. Not good. Not reaching the Big East title game. So a few of the teams that I usually like, I did not have going far at all. So
I always like the small kind of funny things in the tournament, and I like that we had a potential Texas A&M in the second round, and there's a lot of game left to be played. But like you said, since Northern Iowa was up 10 at halftime, nothing would be funnier for me than the Panthers to just go out and basically ruin the 2 biggest names in Texas in basketball on the way to the Sweet 16.
Looks like Maryland will beat Hawaii. Yep. Maryland, thoroughly unimpressive here in this tournament, as they have been for most of the last month or so.
Yeah,
a lot of that Texas matchup did not happen. Other first round upsets: Yale over Baylor. That was the first kind of upset on the deal here.
Yep.
The 12 and 5s always happen. This year they split it in half.
Last year they did not.
No, they did not happen last year. This year we had 2 of them. Neither went to the second round or the third round. When it's the 12 and the 5, or when it's any of these games, Charlie, any of these games, they're played at a neutral court, so that helps. Is it that the team that's the underdog is better than we think? The team that's the favorite is not as good as we think? This is, again, only one game, but plenty of upsets, plenty of double-digit seeds winning multiple games. What is it that it seems like, as we've said the last couple of years, that really there are no upsets anymore? I mean, 12 and 5s happen, 4 and 13s happen.
Parity.
I think it's a little different this year. I don't know if I want to go on a rant about the seedings because it's tough to seed teams, and that would be later anyways. I think a lot of years, though, the 5 seeds are not as good as we think they are, although I think the 5 seeds this year were pretty good. I mean, obviously Indiana was plenty good. I think Maryland is pretty good. I mean, I think maybe the sum of the parts are better than the whole, but they're certainly quite talented. And I think Baylor was really good too. But I think this year, I think it's that these teams sort of, I don't want to say they took them lightly, but I think it's more just that the 12 seeds this year were pretty good. I think a lot of the seeds, I don't know. I'll get into seeding sometime later in the show. But I think this year specifically, I think it's just that a lot of the 12s were better than people thought they were.
I think this year there's no clear-cut favorite teams. I mean, that in the parity, or I don't know, maybe it's not parity quite this year, but there are just so many really good teams that it's impossible to pick out which teams are correctly seeded. And I think you see that a lot of the mid-majors are getting these 12 seeds, and they're really good mid-majors. You know, South Dakota State's a good mid-major. Chattanooga. Yes, they got blown up by Indiana, but they're a good mid-major. Yale, they were dominating the Ivy League pretty much from start to finish. And then Little Rock was very strong in the Sun Belt this year. So you're seeing, I think, just a lot more. The teams that come out of on the 12 line are really, really good. And they're the best of the mid-major crop, and you're getting these average teams out of the Power 5. So you're going to match up against them somewhat favorably. And with regards to Yale, they played 105 miles away from campus. You're going to have a pretty pro-Yale crowd when that happens. And I think most times, too, the teams that are always highly seeded, if the games get closer, it's going to be like you're going to be playing in an away arena or on the road because everyone wants to see the upset in the arena.
And this year, the 6 seeds were 1 and 3. The only 11 seed not to win was the winner, Michigan-Tulsa game. The winner of that did not beat Notre Dame, and that came down to the final 30 seconds of that one. So, basically outside of maybe, the 4-13 matchups, maybe that last line of defense, we're like, okay, the 4 seed should win. After that, who the hell knows what's going to happen the rest of the way. Bracket-wise, stacking, you probably know more than I would, but as far as your bracket standings are, is this a lower scoring year? That's the way it looks like to me, just based on my brackets.
Yep.
Is this going to be, or is the top guy pretty good?
Well, let's see. Who's leading it right now has Villanova. There are a lot of... I would say this is going to be a below-average year. But I think you are seeing this. There are still a lot of potentially very high scores that can be had this year. I think people did go with a lot more upsets. And but, when Michigan State lost Friday, that knocked out 31 brackets. So that certainly did a number. I think we will end up seeing the winning score be right around 90, which actually would be right around average since the years I've been doing this.
I think I'm as long as Carolina wins, I'll be sitting pretty good because there's not a lot of people that picked Carolina, which I was surprised. I don't know because it was Kentucky was in their same bracket there, but are you surprised more people didn't take Carolina?
I think everyone got so fixated on Kansas winning 14 games in Michigan State that people kind of just forgot about North Carolina. But I do think also the fact that Kentucky was in their region, I think persuaded a lot more people to pick against or decided to go against them not taking UNC because the risk of losing to Kentucky was far greater than Kansas losing to a Maryland or a Michigan State losing to a Virginia.
And Indiana will not be easy either. So you have that. South Dakota State, we're down by 18 late in the game, as they are used to do. And they came back versus Maryland. George Marshall showed up for the first time in months. And they were down 3 with 10 seconds left. And Keaton Moffitt's there because Marshall fouled out, saying DeAndre Parks couldn't handle a pass 6 inches from his face. And they lose by 5 points, a game they had no right being in, but somehow they made another run, as they did in the Summit League tournament.
Yep.
Why can this team not be more consistent offensively? Because it was ridiculous in the conference tournament, and was ridiculous again on Friday.
Well, first off, Maryland's. I think the size of Maryland certainly didn't help matters in the first half. I think SDSU was a little, I don't know, taken aback by the size or, maybe just playing a little scared. Biddle did not shoot very well at all. I thought when he was off the court, the team played much better. And I wish they would have sat him far sooner in the first half, and you maybe would have seen a few more things. Like DeAndre Parks had 8 points early on in the first half, and then he didn't shoot or didn't score another point the final 10 minutes. They needed to get him involved a little bit more. That Layman fella for Maryland, what a day to go off and have a career high 27 points because he made 5 threes. It was just easy kick out in the second half. And then I don't know if Maryland got a little lax or, SDSU just started to make shots, and it seemed like once one went in, then more and more started to go. I thought the foul against George Marshall was bull. Should not have been called there. Would have been a 2-point lead. And then plenty of people are going to fixate on the fact that Nagy didn't call a timeout. Perhaps he should have. Maybe DeAndre should have hung onto the ball there. when Keaton was trying to get it to him. I mean, it's a tough pass. They seemed a little discombobulated, but given the personnel that they had, because Marshall's out, I'm okay with them. I mean, they knew the play that they wanted to run. So if you are looking,
it didn't look like they knew the play they wanted to run.
I think if, with hindsight being 2020, I wouldn't have called a timeout after that free throw was made right away. I would have called a timeout when Keaton got trapped right past half court.
Coaches can't call timeouts, I believe. Keaton, Moffitt, somebody's got to figure, okay, there's 6 seconds left. We're fucked. Timeout. You got to know there's a timeout left. You got to know he's 35 feet from the basket. He can't dribble anymore. Timeout. You got to be smarter than this. A bad situation to be in. I mean, you got to call a timeout in that situation. Yep. Charlie, you had mentioned...
It's probably also worth noting, too. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Go.
I was just going to say that, I mean, they kind of got... I don't want to say they got a bad break at the end because they put themselves in that situation, and I don't think you could say it's unlucky if it's your own mistake. But it probably shouldn't have been in the NCAA tournament because they shouldn't have come back to beat Oral Roberts, and they shouldn't have come back to beat Denver. So they were basically playing with house money in the first place. And then you take into account that a much more talented Maryland team was up 18 and was firing on all cylinders. I mean, it would have been much more fun to see him at least put a 3-point shot in the air to see what could have happened, but they were the epitome of playing with house money at that point, and it was just all gravy after I'm assuming that most people are in the same boat as me, that when they were down 18, it was just like, well, this is over. They're going to lose by 20, 8 to 30 or 40. I did not think they would be able to come back at all, but they did, so... I guess they deserve credit for that.
And that's what makes the loss so much more painful, at least from my perspective, is the fact that they fought back and had that chance to win. So it was either A, you could have not had such a crappy shooting first half and put yourself in that situation, and also I'm going to equate this to a degree just in terms of the disappointment. I know it's not it's not quite the same thing, but when Blair Walsh missed that field goal against the Vikings, it's like, oh my gosh. Like, it's just deflating because you had that chance. You were probably going to win that game over Seattle. Here, it's like, holy cow, the Jackrabbits have a chance to force overtime with Maryland, and then to just not even to fumble it the way they did. It's like, oh, that's so pro sport team, whatever I like. I mean that's so SDSU, or that's so Viking-like, to botch that scenario right there to even give you a chance.
I know I've only done this 2 or 3 times in my life, but I think when it was Trimble who fouled whoever it was to foul out with like a minute 10 left in the game or something like that. Oh yeah, and then at that point in time, the second he fouled out, and I think they were down 5 when he got fouled. Mm-hmm. Like, I stood up and then just like pacing because I couldn't sit still, like a nervous parent or something. And I've only done that like 2 or 3 other times ever watching sports. And unfortunately, every time I've done it, the team I've wanted to win has lost.
I paced quite a bit in that.
That was
okay.
I was the whole time, like I was sitting and I was watching, and it wasn't a big deal. But the second Trimble fouled out, and I knew that, and he ended up making all 3 free throws, but knowing that they could cut it to a 1-possession game, all of us were nervous and just started pacing around. It was very... And the only other time I remember doing that off the top of my head was when Nebraska kicked a field goal against Texas in the Big 12 title game to take the lead late. And then everything after that was really bad. So basically, I need to not ever do that ever again.
And what's funny is I didn't realize Parks is an 80% free throw shooter, because most of the time whenever I see he misses one here, he misses one there, it's like always like 4 of 6 or 3 of 7 from the free throw line. I didn't realize he was 80%. And the fact that they were able to make as many free throws as they did down the stretch, I couldn't believe it, to put them in that that situation where they were only to find themselves down 1 or 2 possessions.
The difference between the Summit League Denver game where you sat still,
Yep.
and this game where you're up and down.
The one I can't pace back and forth.
We had the whole room to ourselves. The best part was the guy in front of us who spilled his beer on his buddy. That was pretty good.
The other thing too is I was alone watching this game, so I could do things a little bit more crazy, like in terms of pacing and yelling, than I could in an arena full of people.
Yeah, I was going to say also that for me, like every time I've ever done it has been a time I've either been like all alone somewhere or have been the only person in a room watching that game. And those are the only times I've ever started pacing. And I did not have pants on, I had shorts on.
Good. I mean, sports in general is very good. Is there any, we're not watching a fucking movie here and getting up at the end of the movie and saying, oh, fuck, what's going to happen at the end of this movie here? Anything else equate to what sports is at the end where you don't know, is Northern Iowa guy going to make this half-court shot? Is Blair Walsh going to make this field goal?
I don't know.
Anything out there that compares to that?
Well, to a degree, maybe.
Because you know within. Well, okay. Because you know within the span of like 10 seconds, something big's going to happen. It's going to be really bad or it's going to be really good.
Yep.
I don't know anything else that compares to it.
I don't think there's very few things that can quite compare to sports. I mean, normally you can equate a lot back to sports, but the overall thrill and, like you said, within the last 10 seconds, knowing an outcome's going to happen, I would say, yeah, it's very, very surreal.
I think the other thing, too, is that I think we're all talking about watching it as fans, so you don't have any control, like, whatsoever of what happens. Where in a lot of other things in life, you can control it one way, or like even with movies or TV shows, whether you get nervous or not watching those, you obviously know, like with fictitious stuff, that it's not real. So even if you're into it, it's like, well, if this isn't good, there'll be some other show later. I don't know. I'm running through my head trying to come up with a comparison, minus comparisons for everything.
Yes.
Like the only thing I can think of off the top of my head would be like if you bought a lottery ticket and like you get the first 2 numbers right, and then you would all of a sudden be like, okay, what's going to happen now? And then you would be like, well, clearly, right, are incredibly low,
Right.
Maybe a little bit higher odds or lower odds certainly than the guy making a half-court shot. But it's still something where you don't have any control over it, but all of a sudden it's just like, oh, this got like super.
I can also say
real.
Too,
we're weird as humans the way we watch sports.
Like I knew what the outcome was going to be, but when I got married, like right before I had to lead my parents in and everything like that, like my heart's beating. I was sitting in a chair, like I was freaking out, because it's a huge, big moment in your life. I mean, this is something that's going to change your life forever. You know what's going to happen. Bride's going to walk down the aisle. You're going to do the ceremony, and they'll say, oh, yeah, your husband and wife. Like, that's going to happen, but it's still just the anxious moments leading up to that. It's such a big moment, and I'd say as a sports, as a fan of a college or a professional sports team, you always look for those big moments in life, or with your team. So I would say I could link it to that, just that overall feeling like, oh my gosh, something big is going to happen here.
With marriage, let me go to this point here.
Like when you think about it, is that we're comparing things that are far more important than sports.
Right.
But it's just because we spend so much time dealing with sports all the time. I mean, we're always reading about sports or talking about sports, and there's always some sport going on. Like I was thinking about it, like it's probably, but like the equivalent of like when you think back to like the 1960s or 70s, like the nervous father pacing outside before his kids are born, and then handing out cigars to everybody when they are.
Well,
And
yeah,
like all of those things are far more important than especially a first round NCAA to me. I think it's safe to say we're all like that to an extent, at least us three.
right.
Like probably Traxler and Amon and Schottenkirk too. And it's because we just spend so much time with sports. And some we care about more than others, but there's some that there's so much invested in it that you feel like you know it.
Travis, you'll remember after the Viking Seahawks game when you were on the podcast with me that next day, and you asked,
"Why do we care so much? Why do we care so much?"
And I said it's because you're living vicariously through your sports team, because you know that you'll never be able to achieve what they have, and you're so invested in watching the games, paying for jersey or shirt or tickets and all that stuff. That's like, this is a big moment, not nearly as big as for the players, but you've just gotten so invested in with the team that to have your heart ripped out, it's crushing. And we care because we want to be winners, and that's what sports helps achieve for us, is that sense of winning or being labeled a loser because you're
we're gonna do so much winning you're gonna get sick of it, Stacking.
Yeah, and that's why people hate the Lakers and the Yankees.
I agree with those points. Those are good points. I would also throw in that like almost everybody's got some sort of vice, whether it's drugs or alcohol or chasing men or women or whatever, and ours are just sports. That it's just the adrenaline rush that it gives you, that you can find it in a handful of other ways in life, but not a lot of them when you're watching, especially when it's your favorite team in a big moment. Like, I mean, this is like Nebraska football's not been as good recently. So yesterday, the final 2 minutes of that South Dakota State-Maryland game was probably about as into a game as I was, maybe even going back to the first time South Dakota State beat Western Illinois in the conference tournament, because the next year I was at work, so I couldn't see it. I missed because, but like, so I mean, I don't know, and it's just that everyone, the feeling you win is so large and powerful, I guess, that it's just something that you always go back for, and it's why 80-year-old guys donate millions of dollars to their university that they have not taken classes from in over 60 years and stuff like that.
Take me back to the press box during that Western Illinois game.
I vividly remember that Braden Carlson and I remember standing up like to hurry and go to the press conference because I had to record it. And I remember Jason Hove, like, because normally I was the second.
The
like, you know, we had Big Wags and
did you really
somebody
have to say Big Wags? You know who Wags is.
Big Wags.
Well, I couldn't remember what his first name was, so I had to say I couldn't remember his first name. But Big Wags and Jakub would be doing the play-by-play, and then I would do the backup with Sweeter. But for the conference tournament, Sweeter was down below, so I was doing it with Hove. And I remember after they won, I stood up, and Jason was just like, "What happened? What happened? What happened?" and wanted me to say the final thing. And I remember telling him, and just thinking, like, what does this matter?
What do you mean?
Already
over.
The final. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, the final thing that I had to say.
Oh. Like
whatever Braden Carlson's number, turnover, whatever the Western Illinois guys was. And it was just this moment of like, we should all be so excited right now. Why is the backup thing here important right now? I remember just always thinking that. But I did tell him what it was. I remembered. But I remember, and it was, you know, like up there, we weren't cheering because you're not allowed to cheer or whatever. But it was definitely different than the year before when we watched Keith Benson in Oakland beat the ever-living snot out of South Dakota State.
South Dakota State loses. They had an interesting lineup there at the end. King was out there. Tevin King, see what he does next year. They lose Marshall. They lose Parks. They lose Biddle. I think that's for Ms. Moffitt. Is he a senior?
Moffitt's a senior. Yep, he gone.
That's your play. I think there's one other guy that doesn't matter. Those are your seniors of note.
That's was it Jacobson, Corey Jacobson.
A stellar career he had, multiple points he scored, multiple games he was in. Very fortunate that Mike Dahm turned into a guy this year. Unbelievable. It's kind of a question mark for next year. I mean, they got spots to fill, guards, wings. We know Tellenhuisen will start. We know that Dahm will start. If he doesn't, that's bullshit.
I don't know. He should have started this year. So
you got Ian Tyson. Whether they start two big guys, I doubt that. You got Connor Devine on the bench too. So I don't know who they have coming in.
By the way,
it'll be interesting.
Connor Devine played really well against Maryland, I thought.
Had a couple blocks. He did good.
We haven't seen him play a whole lot this year, limited action, but I thought he proved to be pretty valuable.
He was all right off the bench in a few minutes he played. So I'm interested to see who the guards are going to be. And, Mike Dahm, everybody's going to compare him to Walters as the next best player. Dahm has a chance to be one of the 5 best players if Walters is the best, which I think everybody would think he is. And these are two kind of completely different players. So, Mike Dahm, a big guy, got post moves. He can shoot the 3. So if he can improve maybe his ball handling a little bit, you want to make the prediction now that Mr. Dahm could be a second-round pick here in 3-4 years?
I get what you're saying in Dahm being compared to Walters, and I think that's accurate. I think it would be better to compare them though. In terms of how good they are and how much they mean to the program, I think that's valid. In terms of what they do, though, because like you said, since they played completely different spots, I think it's better to just compare Dahm to being a better version of Jordan Dykstra.
Yeah. Jordan Dykstra,
he's Dykstra version 2.5, I guess.
Yeah, I think you see that that transition into the NBA too, with a lot of these guys being able. I'm not saying that Mike Dahm is Kevin Love, but he's a post presence inside who can knock it or can step back from behind the line and can a 3. I can see that. I could see Dahm, of course, improving. I could see him making a name for him or finding himself onto an NBA roster. I'm not going to guarantee that right now, but I believe where the game is transitioning, you will see more guys like him with that heavy skill set that can transition to the next level.
And it's rare for a guy like that. Usually would go to a bigger school, and obviously people are very surprised at how good he is right away. And if you're a point guard, I would say if your best player is a point guard, you'd rather take that rather than having your best guy be a post player. Because can a guy like Mike Dahm, he needs somebody to get him the ball. I guess that's the question. Who's going to get him the ball? And we really.
Well, Tevin King certainly could do something here. There's Cole Gentry that they got from St. Charles. Last year, I think he redshirted this year, or maybe not. Maybe he's just a freshman that never played. I hear very good things about him. Looking elsewhere here.
If they get a couple transfers in, we'll see.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into Skylar Flatten. He's pretty good, but I don't think he's quite point guard material. I think Tevin King's going to be your point next year, and I think he'll mix in alongside with either Cole Gentry or Bo Brown.
DeAndre Parks and George Marshall, satisfied with what they did in
yes.
a year and a half, 2 years.
Yep.
Satisfied.
Should have made the NCAA tournament last year. Lost to NDSU, but to get into the NCAA tournament and really put on a good show and get SDSU closer to that first ever NCAA tournament win, very good. And I only wish we could have seen Marshall fully healthy. It feels like we were robbed of that pretty much all this year. Saw flashes last year and the beginning part of this year, but if he were 100%, I wonder just what would have happened with this team.
I will blame
Marshall and Parks were both only there for 2 years, right?
Right, but Marshall had to sit out the first part of last year due to a NCAA transfer rule, and Parks was able to play right away. I don't know if it was.
But
the
I mean, like, they
transition
weren't
from-
there for. There wasn't one of them was there for
2
like
seasons.
3 years and just didn't
No,
play
no,
the
it was
first
just
year.
2
They both had 2 years of playing eligibility and played 2 years.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for 2 guys that were brought in to only have 2 years in a 1-bid league and to make the NCAA tournament once, I mean, I'm not going to say like it couldn't have been better, but it's tough to be disappointed and making it once and at least not getting rolled over on the first year. I mean, I'm not going to say it's like absolutely perfect because it would have been more fun if they would have made it last year and if they would have beat Maryland this year. But I mean, it's certainly. I think you've got to really like be nitpicking to be like it's not good enough what they did. At least team-wise. Now individually, I'm sure there's games here and there where you could say they could have done things better, but as a whole.
And I just wonder too with their seeding, if they would have gotten to the 11 line had they not lost. They've taken 2 games in specific, losing at UMKC and then losing at IUPUI. Those 2 losses, I wonder if they would have gotten up to 11 if those L's had changed to W's.
Yeah, according to the seeding, they were the final 12 seed, which was interesting since they had some better numbers RPI-wise than 11 seeds, but their strength of schedule was not as good. And they really didn't have that one great win. Texas Tech was probably their only chance at that. And it was a close game, but they did not win. Jake Biddle came in, played with Walters for 1 year, kind of seen as that guy to replace him. And
That he was never going to replace Walters. That's like Drew Carey having to fill in for Bob Barker.
that's right. I guess, you know, I did a story on him when he committed. I said, okay, this guy, and this was right after SDSU had beaten Western Illinois, made the tournament. What, they played Baylor the first year?
Yep.
It was right after. It was right in that time. Right in that time. And I talked to his high school coach, and there was this big story on Biddle and this kid from Oklahoma, and he's supposed to be really good. And I don't know if he ever was as good as he was not as good as I thought he would be. It didn't seem like he got better every year, and it didn't seem like his senior year was any better than any other year he ever played.
I think he shot more poorly this year than he had in previous years, but he was always a pretty good lockdown defender. I don't know. It's always tough to say if how well he should have played, to meet our expectations. It's again, you having to fill in for possibly the greatest player in SDSU history, in Nate Walters. That's pretty tough. So I think everyone kind of held him to a higher standard. I would not qualify his tenure or his 4 years with SDSU as a disappointment by any stretch. Could he have played better? Absolutely. I thought specifically here in the Summit League tournament, and then on Friday his play tapered off considerably. And if he's a senior, you need him to step up.
And he was on the bench there at the end of the game. He was not in.
I mean, he was cold shooting. I don't know if there was an injury involved that led to the poor shooting performance late in the season. But I'm not going to go out of the way and say that he was a bust or a disappointment.
I will say he was a disappointment. The women, 12 seed over a 5, defeated Miami. This was a game most people around here thought they would win.
Good job, President Obama.
Obama thought they'd win. Thanks, Obama. And they won. It was close at the end. But when you threw the ball out there, it was a 2-point game at the half. They were down. And SDSU went on the run in the third quarter there, got up by double digits, 8, 9, 10 points. And, I mean, they were just the better team. And if these teams play 7 times, South Dakota State wins at least 4 of them, maybe even 5 of them. So I would say once SDSU plays teams on a neutral floor, I think Miami was ranked around 20th in the nation. I think they can compete with those teams Once you get to that top 15, top 10, and that's when things start to get dicey. And the top 5 as a whole, a different situation altogether. But I would say they're at a position now where they can definitely beat teams ranked 25th in the country. They should be expected to win, and they did. I would say this is really the first time since the 2009 season where they were expected to win a game. Is that correct?
I would agree. I would say last year I thought they would maybe be able to hang with Oregon State for a while, but this is also the first year to that, or at least first year since
the first
nine that I can remember where they haven't had to play a quote-unquote road game in the first round against a team that's hosting. So I think that certainly played a factor in it. I'm anxious and curious to see tomorrow how they play against Stanford on their home court. This isn't the Stanford team of last year, a couple years ago, teams that can really rival UConn and give them a run for their money. But certainly a very talented team. But SDSU is talented in their own right. They have to certainly work on free throws and handling some pressure defense there in the end, the full court press. But overall, I mean, this SDSU team's only going to be better next year. I don't know what their non-conference schedule is going to look like. It's probably not going to be nearly as good as it was this year in terms of getting the quality opponents to come to Frost and then going elsewhere. But the only players they're losing this year are Chloe Corneman and Gabby Bover, and they've both been coming off the bench this year. So I'm sure AJ's going to get another top 100 recruit out of Minnesota, just like Madison Giebert this year. And I just think the sky's the limit right now for SDSU. There's no one that's going to slow them down.
And let's be honest, I'm sure there's another Bover or Corneman somewhere they can get. I mean, it seems like they've had multiple ones of those for like the last 20 years.
There is another Corneman down in Yankton, but I do not think she is good enough to play at South Dakota State. So, yeah, I think the line will end with 2 Cornemans and 2 Bovers until Maria Bover has her kids with Troy Whiff, and you may see some female whiffs on the roster. Checking in here in about the year 2035 or so. So we'll check in on that. 20 years. Sports Lounge number 2,967 is when we'll break that one down. Charlie, I think next year is going to be the best team. I mean, I think this year's team is the best they had since 2009, when they were a 7th seed, I believe, and they were ranked in the top 20 for the majority of the year. I think next year may be their best team ever. Because as Stacken said, they only lose 2 players, and they're not real essential to the deal. Mason Miller.
I think they provide key, valuable minutes, and
they're replaceable, easily replaceable.
Well, they're bench play. Yeah, I mean they're not in the starting lineup. I guess that's the bigger thing.
If you rate players on a scale of 1 through 5, they're not 4s or 5s, is what you're saying. They're 2s or 3s that are being replaced.
I'll give them a 5 just to be generous. They're good. They're not a liability out there. They are fine with what they do.
Well, I would say that's like a 3 of being fine and not being a liability.
Macy Miller is a junior. She's great. Carrie Young, I believe, is a senior. She's very good for a second, third best player. Madison Giebert is my favorite player. She's phenomenal. She can shoot amazingly, so she can be the best player on the team.
I want to see this Tanoia Wade too. That transfer from St. John's.
So if she can be anything of a player, that'll be unbelievable. Ober's very good down low. Ellie Thompson misses all the layups, but she's good. They bring in a girl from Mount Vernon Plankington that I've mentioned a couple times, who maybe they redshirt her next year because they're awfully deep. And they really honestly don't need her, so maybe they could redshirt her a year. That'd be nice. But it seems like next year, for the next 2 years, they should probably win at least another tournament game or 2 here before Macy Miller hangs them up. Is that too much to ask?
I mean, That '09 team was pretty good.
They were.
And if they would have been seeded a bit better, I mean, hell, they could have won that second round game anyways. But that's another
They
debate.
got hosed.
But
Got hosed.
I think they've got a chance to be that good. I don't know. I mean, like ever since I remember them with anything, like certainly I know there have been like much better programs than South Dakota State that have done this, but they're all like, major teams from power conferences. Like men's or women's, I can't think of a whole lot of mid-major teams that just so consistently are always like, oh yeah, we've got like 4 big guys or big gals because it's women's basketball, I guess. But they're just like, oh yeah, we can rotate them in. We've got like 3 or 4. It's not a problem. And they just always have. Yeah, I mean, whether they're centers or forwards, it doesn't matter. They're just like, no, we've got plenty of them. Like, oh, I don't know, this girl's in foul trouble. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's okay. We've got somebody else. And it's impressive the depth they've been able to build with, I guess, it seems like they all come from Minnesota.
Yep.
And that no other team within like 500 miles has decided to recruit any of those players.
I think it just speaks to the type of program that AJ has built, that people are looking at South Dakota State, looking South Dakota as the destination to go play for women's basketball. I mean, even Muffet McGraw, when she thanked the fans when Notre Dame came to Brookings and said, "You guys have a great program. You guys are tremendous. This was a fun game to play. Sure, it's fun because you won, but if AJ's able to get someone from St. John's University in New York. Now, granted, her hometown's Bloomington, Minnesota, but, I mean, you're not picking another high-end D1 school like in Minnesota or Wisconsin. You're picking South Dakota State, and he's getting the best players in South Dakota and then letting USD have well, you can't have all the great players from South Dakota, I guess, so USD will get their share in there too. But if you're a Summit League coach, how do you recruit? How do you sell coming to your school? Say, hey, South Dakota State is cheating very, very well, and that's who we want. We want you to help us knock them off. Or, I mean, honestly, besides
that's my answer for everything in recruiting now. It's cheating.
I mean, outside of Austin Parkinson
Money.
At IUPUI, because he can get some of those better. Yeah, yes, you. Doing that. I mean, he can recruit some of those.
I think Omaha. We both like Omaha.
Omaha, Omaha's really good too. They're going to rise, but I think I already said next year that it's going to be SDSU and Omaha in the championship game. I just don't know where you can. I don't know how you're going to knock them down. SDSU. I just don't.
USD had a nice 2-3 year run. Upset SDSU twice. Seacamp's very good. They got other good players. He Miller's very good. I want to see what they do here. Polly Harrington, very good. I want to see what they can do here. Kelly Stewart, very good. I want to see what they can do here in the next couple of years, see if they can rebuild here and get back up and compete with South Dakota State, because they certainly competed this season, winning both games. Now they're in the Sweet 16. Elite 8 of this, I think, Sweet 16 of this NIT. They've beaten Creighton. They went to Minnesota and beat the hell out of them, put up 100 points, I believe. Now they get to Northern Iowa on Thursday night at home, so they can definitely go on a deep run in the NIT like the SDSU women did last year, which would be good to see.
It's unfortunate that the NCAA doesn't work this way, but if we're being honest, I think South Dakota State just needs to move to the MAC or the Missouri Valley in women's basketball. Now, you can't move in just one. Well, I mean, you can move in just one sport if you're Notre Dame, I guess, but that's not going to happen. But I think that's really what they would need to have happen, and what would probably be better for everybody except the Sioux Falls, or except the Summit League tournament in Sioux Falls on the women's side. It would not be good for that.
You think about if the men move, they transition.
And I'm only talking the women. Right. I'm not saying the men are good enough in all these sports, but
right. But I'm just saying, if we were to look at it from the men, they'd be better than Drake. Missouri State, Loyola, Illinois, and maybe Evansville.
They beat Illinois State this year, so.
Yep.
I mean,
I think they could certainly compete.
They're already in the Missouri Valley in football. I think they should just say, screw you to the Summit League and move to the Missouri Valley and everything else.
I don't think that's going to happen.
If there's no South Dakota State,
there's
no South Dakota State in the Summit League. I mean, I want to say there's no Summit League, but goddamn, nobody would care about that, and they would just be like every other SWAC and MEAC out there. So that's how bad it would be. It's interesting that if 5 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, SDSU did what they did against Miami, we'd be talking Aaron Johnston, Lindsey Leven from Minnesota, Lindsey Leven for whatever, and now he's married, he's got a couple kids, and I would say we would all say that there's really no place close. Minnesota was that job. They changed coaches a year or two ago, and that ain't going to happen. So he's, I would say there's no reason to leave now. Whatever you have here is a lot better. He's past that point of leaving. He's like Mark Few at Gonzaga. He's like, okay, you're going to leave? Nope, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to make the tournament every year. Now Gonzaga has a very good chance to get to the Final Four this year. So I would say with Amy Williams, she should leave now if she is. If she doesn't leave in these next couple of years, maybe plant the roots down in Vermilion and kind of do the same thing. So Aaron Johnson's not going anywhere, and it's good that we've gotten to this point with that. So
I would say Amy Williams is like old Greg Marshall at Wichita State, where they both have some of the best players they've had in a while. And with them leaving, I don't think they're necessarily going to be awful, but there's a good chance that the iron will not be hotter than it's been the last 2 or 3 years. It might not get that hot again for a long, long time.
I know Wichita State's got some good guys like McDuffie and a couple other good ones there, Grady, but I'm going to say right now Wichita State does not make the NCAA tournament next year. And if I were Marshall, I would consider moving to Stanford.
Could I interest you in saying Oklahoma State is better than Stanford?
Yes,
I think he would be better at Oklahoma State than Stanford.
It would be pretty much in your same recruiting ground. I mean, Wichita is not that far away from Stillwater.
There you go.
And like I think at Oklahoma State, like there's just Stanford. Like if you're really good, you can win there, but it's just different because there's so many kids you just can't take just because they don't have the academics to get in there.
And poor I'm gonna forget the guy's name, so I'll look it up here quick. The Stony Brook men's basketball coach. I don't know if he's
the Seawolves
getting a promotion by going to Rutgers, but good luck there.
Why would you?
Stony Brook's coach is leaving to go to Rutgers?
Yeah.
Ugh.
I
mean, he'll get paid more, but I would not want to go to Rutgers to coach any sport right now.
Steve Peichel.
Hey, maybe wait to see if Wichita State opens up and maybe go there. How about that? Because I'd sure as hell want to go to Wichita State 10 times over Rutgers. And it's not even close. Oh, my God. The women play Stanford tomorrow night, 8 p.m., so we'll see what can happen there. If they were to somehow that would be an upset, and if they were to pull that off, they get a rematch versus Notre Dame in Lexington, Kentucky, which would be very interesting. Consider they played very well at Frost Arena against Notre Dame in November, so that'd be a very interesting matchup. Too bad it wouldn't be in Sioux Falls.
Where
would be a whole
And where would they play Notre Dame?
At Kentucky, I think.
At Kentucky? Yeah, it would be more fun in Sioux Falls. Kentucky would be bad.
It's not bad. So we have that to look forward to. Men's season is done, but Maryland ended up defeating Hawaii. So you have Maryland there playing Kansas. You've got Miami and Nova. This is the most chalk of all the regions here. You go to the West. You have Oregon still to play St. Joe's, which is a game I think is going to be pretty good. Duke found their way to the Sweet 16. Duke and Oregon could be lots of points. And it looks like Northern Iowa should hang on to beat A&M, still time in that one. But a Northern Iowa, Oklahoma, Sweet 16 would set up for Oklahoma to win there. Carolina, Indiana, probably your best.
I mean, maybe. We've probably thought both Texas and Texas A&M would win. UNI is already, they're in the middle of a drive-by shooting through the Big 12 right now.
Also, VCU and Oklahoma. We mentioned good games. That was a good game. VCU always fighting from behind. Took the lead there in the second half for a few seconds, but that was a good game. With if I could compare this to wrestling stacking, it's like you got the guy beating him down, beating him down, then the underdog makes a comeback for a couple minutes, and then the guy beats him down again, and then he makes another comeback, and then it's all that deal, and the bad guy wins at the end.
This is like it's the Hogan wagging the finger thing.
That's pretty much. It's very good. I can't come up with a match right now I could compare it to, but it's where the underdog puts up a pretty good fight, but just does not win there at the end. Carolina, Indiana. That should be
that time that Taka Michinoku almost beat Triple H to win the heavyweight title in like 2000.
There you go.
On Raw.
I'll say VCU is better than him, and Oklahoma not as good as Triple H, but that's the general idea right there. Like, oh shit, look out here. You have Notre Dame and the Xavier Wisconsin winner, which I hope to hell is Xavier because I have no interest in Wisconsin. Virginia, Iowa State, a contrast in styles. Virginia, none of the points. Iowa State, all of the points. And you have Gonzaga and Syracuse, the most unlikely of all the matchups, which I always enjoy when we have a double-digit seed that is guaranteed to play in the Elite Eight.
Is this? I want to say that all but a couple of years we've had at least two double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16.
That sounds right. Seems like that's a stat. Every year there's at least two. You know, your 10 seeds, your 12 seeds making a run. So
it's funny
that there's one or two that make the Sweet 16. It's when they make the Elite Eight that it like. I mean, it's always a big deal because there's one or two and it's fun, but it's when somebody makes the Elite Eight as one that it really. I mean, especially when it's used. I mean, Syracuse, it's interesting, but it's completely different if it's a smaller school that does not play in a major conference.
That's what I was just going to say. The fact that it's Syracuse and Gonzaga. I mean, the Zags have made the tournament for 18 straight years. So is this really a huge Cinderella run for either of these two teams, considering their storied success in the NCAA tournament?
I believe that they were a 1.5 point favorite versus Utah.
Made the Final Four, so.
True.
They're the team that surprised everybody, and then they kept on winning their conference every year. And even when they didn't, a time or two, they made it as an at-large, and they would get a 1, 2, 3 seed sometimes, and usually disappoint. But they're kind of the blueprint. If you're South Dakota State women, go from, okay, we know we're going to be in the tournament. We want to get a good seed. We want to get a 4 seed, a 5 seed, a 6 seed. We want to win a couple games. So that's where we're at with that. Villanova beat the hell out of Iowa, so I had to buy a Schottenkirchen shirt, which she should be getting next week. 7-point spread on that, made 5 months ago. That was not close. The actual point spread was 6, so we did awfully good on that 5 months out. Miami, a lot of people didn't like Miami. They were off impressive. Wichita State, Miami was a pretty good game.
I wonder what the outcome of that game would have been if they had pushed that to the later time slot. Instead of, because Wichita State had to play the playing game, they had to play the late game in that region, or in Brooklyn on Thursday, and then the early game on Saturday. I feel like they got a slightly raw deal in that.
Okay, early start, something like that. California had some injuries there, so they lose to Hawaii. Kansas, not impressive in the second half against UConn. Very impressive in the first half. Anything else that we forgot to mention here? ACC, obviously, I think second year in a row for the ACC, only 1 loss the first 2 rounds. Notre Dame.
I read somewhere today that prior to the Maryland game, which obviously Maryland won, so it's another win. But it's like dating back to the start of the NCAA tournament last year, the ACC's like 29-7, and it's just like that's like I just can't think of something where they've been like better than I ever remember this year, and were really, really, really good last year. So I just can't remember a time where 2 years in a row in basketball, like one conference has just been so much better than everybody else, at least in terms of winning games.
Would you say that
very poor?
Yeah, Pac-12 not good. Look at the Pac-12. They have Oregon still left here. USC Providence, another good game, good finish in that one, back and forth. That's an 8-9 seed, so that's a toss-up with USC. You look at Utah. It was basically a pick-em with Gonzaga. It's one thing to lose. It's one thing to lose by 25 points. That's not very impressive. Oregon State VCU, a 7-10, another toss-up that they lost. What else did they have? Arizona. If I had one regret with my bracket, it's not picking Wichita State to beat Arizona. And that game really not all that close. California with their injuries, a 4 seed out. And Colorado UConn toss up and they lose. So you hope they could win at least one of those games. They won none of those games. So screw you, Pac-12.
Don't be talking about how we never get any respect. Do something in the tournament.
And we would say that the tournament games for basketball are more important than bowl games for conferences, as far as that's concerned, Charlie. As far as what conference is the best and all that sort of deal.
Yeah, I think it's a bigger deal in basketball because football's so different where, like, everybody, like, whether they play well or not, like, everybody knows they need to win in March Madness. Where in football, like, you always get 4 or 5 times where some team that's clearly better, like you can tell, was just like, nope, we did not go to the bowl game we wanted to, we didn't have the season we wanted to, and we are going to spend more time seeing the sights and drinking booze than prepping to play a game. Like in the big games, it usually doesn't happen, but yeah, in the Sun Bowl and stuff like that, there's always like, oh, how come this team that's a 2-touchdown favorite and is ranked is struggling to beat Wake Forest right now?
I like the court stacking.
Yep.
Add some color to these courts for the first time in a long time. Your purple, your blues, your greens, your oranges.
I'm not a huge fan of the lime green. I think it's a little too bright, but I overall agree. I think this is the best thing that they've done court-wise in quite some time.
Yeah, the light green is so bright that it's kind of hard to see the basket on the one end sometimes. And I know it's out there, but I think they're going to stay with these colors here for the rest of the tournament somehow.
I would imagine so.
So that'll be good to see. Anything else tournament-wise, announcer-wise, anything else we have not covered?
Just in regards to the seeds.
Yeah, the seeds.
And I don't know if I want to go like super deep into this because this is something you could talk about for like half an hour. But like almost always, like every year I can remember, there's always like mid-major teams getting like 6 and 7 seeds and stuff. And like when it comes, basketball is different than football. Like I think we can agree that the Big East and the Atlantic 10 are not mid-major conferences. Like they're not at the same level as the ACC, but they're not, Johnny come lately, we're only going to get 1 or 2 teams in the tournament. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a bracket in front of me, but as far as I can remember, there are no mid-major teams higher than an 11 seed. And I think that part of the reason there's a lot of weird stuff happening is, and like we've complained about this in the past, that like this NC State team that barely got in the tournament shouldn't be a 12 seed. That's dumb. And there's some truth to that, but the problem is like, should Texas have been a 6 seed? Should Oregon State have been like a 7 seed?
Right.
Yeah, they probably were not that good. Where a lot of these mid-major teams, like Wichita State's not a perfect example because they lost their conference tournament. But if they won their conference tournament, probably should have been like a 7 seed. And I think there's a slew of upsets that were basically just like, Arkansas Little Rock, I can't believe that, they beat Purdue. And it's like, well, they were a 12 seed. They probably should be like a 9 seed, though. And I think that and I mean, I don't want a selection committee under the bus because seeding's probably the most difficult thing they can do. In like politics, you're not ever going to be able to please everybody. And I know in the past we had complained specifically here a lot, or at least I had, about like, teams from major conferences getting a 12 seed and they shouldn't get in the tournament. And I think there's some truth to that, but at the same time, like I don't think we should have it either, though. We're going to say, like, other than Syracuse as an 11 and Michigan as an 11, like, oh, we need to make sure that all these major teams are.
I think I was just going to say that, this year much different in the fact that you've had very few 1 seeds win their conference tournaments. So that speaks a little bit to the issue with, seeding wise. I would like to see the play-in games actually put the last 8 teams that are in the tournament. I'd like to see, regardless of the conference. I don't want if you win your conference tournament, you shouldn't have to play an additional game just to get into the field of 64.
Agreed.
I would love to see them put, and maybe that means that that Monmouth would get a chance this year or something. I mean, or maybe it wouldn't. You'd have your last 4 teams that have quote unquote buys, but I wish that they would put Syracuse and Pitt and all these other schools, the Tulsas, the Michigans, have those be your first 4 because you guys didn't do enough in your conference tournament to get in. And I heard Jay Billis say this a couple of times, how that they should seed the tournament prior to the major conference tournament starting so that you know for sure what you have to do.
Okay.
I think you mean like the football where they come out with
essentially, yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
Go back to 64 teams.
Well, that's not going to
That would also work.
Because it was a deal where there was like another conference added 10 years ago when they started with 65. And like, well, not taking an at-large away, so it's going to be 65, and we're going to have the 16s playoff. However, it is nice. I believe this is 6 years in a row that one of the play-in game at-large teams have won a game in the actual tournament and gone to the second round.
Right.
Wichita State last year, VCU making the Final Four there in 2010 or whenever the hell that was. So that was good to see. So these are teams that can win in the tournament, but it should be hard to get into the tournament. Go back to a 64 teams. That was fine with me. No play-in game because, quite frankly, those play-in games this year sucked. They were awful. It was not good.
Right, but I think if you are doing the play-in games, it should pit against the teams that didn't win their conference tournaments, or just, I mean, it's truly to get into the field of 64.
Well, looking at this here, you would take the other 11 seeds. Northern Iowa got in, Gonzaga got in, so we wouldn't count them. You'd have to go to the 10 seeds. You have Pittsburgh, Temple, Syracuse, and VCU would play it off. And when all the 16 seeds get in,
I guess the other thing I was thinking too of with the committee is they have to have they can't have different criteria every year. Say this is what we're looking at, so teams know at the beginning in terms of trying to schedule and playing some good opponents. Can't be like, well, this like Monmouth played 13 road or 17 true non-conference road games or road and neutral court, however many they played. Then the committee says, oh, we don't care about road wins. It's all about what you're doing against the BPI or the RPI top 50. Okay, well, if that's the way you're going to see it this year, make sure that's the way it is next year so teams can look into that ahead of time.
I'd say going back to Charlie's point with the mid-majors versus the Oregon States of the world, I mean, they just get more opportunities to beat teams in the top 50. And those, I'm like, if Wichita or VCU, they've taken a step up in conference, and they've done very well. because of the conference realignment. We've seen some shifting here as far as conferences go, and we've seen some mid-major teams get up another conference, and they've done more than well enough. And I would say, if you put a VCU or Wichita State in the Big 12 or the Big East, I would say they would more than hold their own and be one of the top, 3, 4, 5 teams in those conferences. If you put Gonzaga in the Pac-12, I think they would year in and year out be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in that conference. So, like if you put Butler in the Big 10, I think they would compete in that conference. So,
I just think it's weird that there aren't any like mid-major teams. Like, I just remember like 6 or 7 years ago, Drake Conference, and they were good, but they weren't like an all-time good mid-major seat team, and they got a 5 seed.
Drake?
So are we going to pretend that Drake like 6 or 7 years ago lost in a 5-12 game, lost to Western Kentucky on a 3-pointer in the opening round?
Yep.
I mean, there's no way like that Drake team was better than 11, 12, 13 mid-major seed this year. I mean, they might have been better than some of them, but I just think it's just weird to me that and I'm not saying that you need mid-majors to get like a 5, a 6, and a 7 seed all the time. It's just weird that none of them are high. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that there were a lot of 1 seeds that lost in their conference tournament, but not every 1 seed lost. And I'm just surprised there's nobody that's like, an 8 or a 7 or something like that.
Looks like Northern Iowa's going to win. They're up 7 with 2 minutes to go here. So Northern Iowa, an 11 seed, I would say they would be considered your Cinderella of this tournament. Get into the second weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen F. Austin, goddamn, you were on him a couple years ago. That was fun to watch. Goddamn,
it was so fun to watch this year. I only saw him play twice, but those 2 games were fun.
And they haven't lost a conference game in 2 years. And it's hard to watch these games in the regular season when you know they're going to win by 20 points. And the deal here that makes the tournament so great is every single game you watch, the loser of that game, their season is done. That's the last game they're going to play. So it's winner take all, winner go home, as they say. That's what makes the tournament so great each and every year. We had a crazy regular season, had a crazy conference championship season, and this tournament has been very, very good as well, with Friday being an all-time day with Middle Tennessee State beating Michigan State and DF Austin beating West Virginia for 2 big upsets.
And you and I hitting a half-court shot to win at the buzzer.
And Marcus posted something about some guy named America. I didn't watch that. Was that a half-court shot as well, or what was that?
It was. Some guy named U.S. Reed from Arkansas in the 80s. I don't know what round it was. I think it's safe to say it wasn't the Final Four or the Elite Eight or the Sweet 16, because they would make a bigger deal about it if it was.
Well, we've seen.
But it was some guy from Arkansas, and I don't know. It's to me it's funny because it was me that posted it first, I think, because someone was like, "Oh yeah, that UNI shot reminded me of this." And it's like, well, I mean, they are both half-court shots to win an NCAA tournament game at the buzzer, but it just looks like so unathletic, and this guy's dribbling and not getting anywhere, and is doing like a crossover that your gym teacher teaches you in 5th grade, and it just looked. I mean, it was a nice shot, but it looks like it's like the equivalent of watching. Someone was like, that 1945 Army football team was good, and they show a clip, and you're like, oh, that's not the same football that they play today. It's so like that, but with basketball, where it's like, oh.
Would you say it was a lucky shot? That Northern Iowa shot, I mean, you have to have some luck with the half-court shot, but he was wide open. That's as good as a look as you're going to get. So was this shot I just threw it up there and just went in, or? Because I haven't seen it. If I see it, maybe I'll see it.
It banked in, so
that's fine with me. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, there was no pressure on him. I mean, I don't know if Texas was just not wanting to foul or.
I mean, it's the thing where with DeAndre Parks in Denver. Yep. Do not get near the guy. If he wants to throw up a half-court shot, that's fine. And if he makes it, good luck. You can play. That's the same thing here. We're going to overtime. If you want to put in a 45-foot shot, go right ahead. And if you make it, congratulations, you deserve to win.
I remember playing in a high school game, a close game, where that was literally almost word for word the exact same thing a coach told us in timeout. It was just like, get close to them, put your hands in the air, don't foul them, don't get too close. If they make a shot from that far away, then they deserve to win.
And I haven't seen this shot. If I see it, maybe I remember that, but I do not remember this shot at all with this guy. And we've seen all the clips, and we know all the highlights that they always show with the buzzer beaters, and I don't know if this is ever on there because I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't think
for a half-court shot to win an NCAA tournament game, it's about as unimpressive as you can get.
And I've never heard of it.
Which is weird to say.
I'm amazed
that
it's not in the highlight reel.
Puts the ball in, and he very slowly dribbles to the left, and then does this crossover where he stands still and doesn't move, and two guys get in front of him and put their hands in the air like this, and he kind of just jumps in the air and shoots it with his full body, and it ends up going in.
The earliest, it's like there were no game-winning shots in the double NCAA tournament in the 70s or the 60s because you never see them. The first one I remember was like Danny Ainge in the early 80s. BYU beat Notre Dame or somebody. He went the length of the court, laid it in to win the game. Of course, the North Carolina State shot back in the mid-80s. Those are and obviously Michael Jordan shot. It seemed like there were no game-winning shots pre-1981. It just didn't happen apparently.
I think it was because UCLA just beat everybody by 90 before then.
They
won 30 straight titles.
That they did. Trivia question to wrap it up, Mr. Stack, and also want to mention next week we'll know the Final Four. We'll be a week away from the baseball season, so we will do a National League baseball preview next week, and plus the basketball talk. And then in 2 weeks we'll do American League, Minnesota Twins stuff. Maybe even Drew Ahman will get on the program there. So we're splitting up the baseball like we did the college football. National League next week, American League in 2 weeks. So there you go.
Perfect.
And there's only two of us. I'm sure this would work better with three, as you said.
Yes. I think the more, I think even if
or
we
if you want to save it, I don't know.
Well, we could. It does deal with the NCAA tournament.
If you think it's good enough to save, I'm sure we'll have somebody else here next week.
Yeah, we could do that.
Alrighty. Very good. Northern Iowa.
Remind me. I think we can only do it with up to 3 people.
Okay.
Would probably be the best. Unless we do 4, we could just knock it. If we do 4, then it would just be an elimination factor. If you do 3, we could still do point values.
So fear is not a factor for you? Is that what this is?
Yeah, it's a fear factor.
Okay. Looks like Northern Iowa's going to win. Wisconsin, Xavier, 10 minutes to go. Pretty much died.
Come up with a trivia question in about 10 seconds here.
We got flipping it around. He should be in the circus. Very good. And Oregon, St. Joe's, Oregon early lead there. So we got time to end the show and watch a couple more games. So we got a trivia question by Charlie here.
Looking at this, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 answers. Can you name the 8 15 seeds that have beaten a 2 seed?
Very good.
Bonus points if you can name who they beat and what the score was.
How about the year? How about the year?
You know what? And the year too. I mean, you know what? I don't normally do the stacking one. We'll do this the stacking way though. You're gonna have to keep track of your own points. But you get 1 point for the year, 1 point for guessing
the team.
15 seed. Yeah, 1 point for guessing the 2 seed, and then if you can get a 4th point if you get the score exactly right.
Okay.
I can name a couple.
We'll go left to right. So we'll start with stacking.
All right, I'm going to go with Dunk City in 2013 against our Georgetown Hoya squad, and I believe they won something like 83-65.
We're going to need a name and not a nickname, just to be safe.
Florida Gulf Coast.
Yep. Say the year again.
2013.
That is correct. You get 3 points. The actual score was 78-68, though. So you got 3 points, Stacken.
Well, I will then take the easy one, say Middle Tennessee State in 2016 beat Michigan State. I didn't see the game, so I don't remember the score. It was something like, I don't know, 92-85.
You get 3 out of 4. You were close to the score. It was 90-81. So 3 points.
If I would have watched the game, I probably would have remembered, but I don't. The scores are going to be tough.
Side note, I watched almost none of that game. I saw it was close early in the first half and thought, that won't matter. Michigan State will win. And I was watching something else and taking care of other things, and then I saw they were down by 10 with like 10 minutes left in the game and thought, maybe I should watch that. And the team I had winning the whole thing lost to Middle Tennessee in the first round.
I'll go
Stacking.
I'll go 2012 Lehigh over Duke. That score was 77-72.
Oh, you get 3 out of 4. You were so close. The score was 75-70.
Ah, damn it.
I did watch. I had completely forgotten about that, and I watched like the last couple minutes of that the other day. That was good. Also 2012.
3 points for Stacking.
Also 2012, Norfolk State beat Missouri 82-67.
You get 3 out of 4, sir. It was 86-84. They only won by 2. But a win's a win, especially when you're a 15 seed. So I think every one so far, you guys have gotten 3 out of 4. And there's 4 left, and we are out of the 4 most recent ones. Back to Stacking.
Now, this is where it's going to get really dicey here for me. I know that Hampton beat Iowa State. I think that was out in Boise.
Yep.
And I'm going to say it was 1997, and Hampton won 57-53.
Stacking. You only get 2 out of 4. It was in 2001.
Okay.
So it was more recent than that. And the score 58-57. Dotting around all of the right ones and just not quite getting it right.
Why do you remember?
So you get 2 out of 4.
Why do you remember it was in Boise?
Because I don't know, it's just one of those iconic games that the guy
because
picked up his coach.
Yes.
And
it's because of the courts. The court, they did not change the courts back then. The court is Boise State's court. They're blue and orange and shit. And that's how you remember some of these games. Oh, yeah, it was at Boise where this happened. Where did Lehigh beat Duke? I would assume it's like in North Carolina somewhere.
UNC Greensboro, I think.
Goddamn if I know. Where did Missouri lose to Norfolk State? We don't have a fucking clue. Don't have a clue.
Side note on that Iowa State game, I was a freshman in high school and found out about it in a speech class where our teacher, she was a alum of Iowa State and was incredibly angry and upset. I remember kind of pointing and laughing at her a little bit because me about Nebraska beating Iowa State, which is weird because they won in football. She was a weird lady, and I'm glad that her Cyclones lost that day.
I do not have any more teams.
Okay.
Do you have any more teams?
Yep. I mean, you can at least wager a year or guess a team that won or lost if you want.
Let's see. It's got to be from the 80s or 90s.
The only.
I'd say.
I'm not. I was going to give you a clue, but that would help you too much, so I will not give you any clues.
1990 for a year.
There was not one in 1990. You're close, but there was not one in 90.
Princeton for a team that won. I'll say Georgetown.
There's no
not?
Princeton.
Why the hell not? Georgetown twice. Why not? Unlikely.
No Princeton and no Georgetown, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. I got one in 91. It was Santa Clara.
Yeah, that's right.
And they beat, I can't remember the team. I'm going to say Arizona 69-61.
That's right.
And you're jumping. You were correct that Santa Clara beat Arizona, so you get 2 points. It was in 93.
Doggone it.
And the score was 64-61.
I'm getting these scores pretty damn close. I'm actually somewhat impressed with myself here.
I will say 1991 was a year.
That is correct. 1991 was a year.
Based on the last question answer.
I have one more guess for sure.
Say Oklahoma lost a game to Tulsa.
That does not get points for the year.
Okay.
I was going to give you a clue, but the clue was going to be sort of what you guessed anyways, is that it was but I mean, it's obvious when you think about it because it's a 15 over a 2. It's a small school beating a large school.
Yep. I want to say.
So there's one more out there.
Yep. Did Richmond beat Syracuse one year in like 96?
Richmond did beat Syracuse. That was in 1991, the one Krenz was trying to guess.
Damn it.
You want to guess the score, Stackin?
Yeah, it was like 69-58.
Oh, Stackin. 73-69.
Fuck.
One more left?
There's one more game that you have not guessed a team or the year correct. You've got 7 out of the 8.
I mean, those other two, when you mention them, I remember them now. This other one, maybe I might, but I don't have a goddamn clue.
Do you want to guess, Stackin?
I'm trying to wrap.
Either of you, yes. You want to guess, or do you want me to tell you? I'm fine
just
either
tell
way.
me. I don't
Say
remember.
Iowa lost in 1994 to Western Kentucky.
In 1997, Coppin State beat South Carolina 78-65.
Yes. Oh, I was trying to rack my brain for the MEAC schools, and I couldn't think of that.
South Carolina is a goddamn 2 seed. That looked like
Yes.
very well.
I watched a little tiny bit of college basketball in 97, not a great deal. I do not ever remember a time in my life South Carolina being good at basketball, though. So I guess I did not watch any SEC games that year.
I'm watching the March Madness app, so I'm sure the Northern Iowa game is over, but they got to within 3 there with about 20 seconds to go, and then Northern Iowa dunks. Which is this game over, Stackin?
I'm not seeing that.
Oh, the refs are talking and they're reviewing something. I don't know if they need to get time right or not, but UNI is up 5 with 18 seconds left.
Yep, Northern Iowa just threw like. So yeah, I'm probably 10, 15 seconds behind here to 3. So there you go.
I'm turning it on right now.
I'll have a trivia question for you two. Back and forth.
Okay.
I will give you each one wrong answer.
Okay. Let me get my charger here because I'm about ready to die.
Stackin put his heart ventilator in there.
Answers. Stackin is not here.
I'll give you all the answers here, okay? Here's all the answers, and they'll be like, "What? How did you get that?"
How did he know that the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels was the answer to a non-wrestling sports question? All right, so while we're waiting, where do you rank the UNI half-court buzzer beater shot to all of the shots in all of the rounds in March Madness.
The first,
I think we've got to say that the NC State one's better. We got to say that the Christian Laettner shot against Kentucky is still better. But after those two, I mean, I'm not saying it's third, but it starts really being there can't be too many more that are ahead of it, though.
as far as important shots to win titles, one, I think Keith Smart from Indiana was the guy against Syracuse who made the shots. Mario Chalmers, I think, made a pretty big shot against Kansas against.
His was different because it was to tie and force overtime, right?
But
still, obviously, a big shot nonetheless at the end of a game.
Mike Miller, first round, I remember that just early on with Florida. It was at Wake Forest. They beat whoever the hell they played. The first shot I remember seeing was Bryce Drew with Valpo beating Old Miss. I think it was a 13 versus a 4. That whole thing there. As far as shots I've seen, I mean, if that's not in your top 5, I don't know what the hell it is. The Trey Burke shot a couple years ago versus whoever the hell Michigan played. I think it was a pretty big name team in the dome.
Kansas?
Could have been. That was like an Elite 8 type deal.
I forgot about that one.
That was a pretty big goddamn shot right there. So
only counting the ones that I saw a lot. The UNI guy, it's the Chalmers one, it's the Nicholas guy from Maryland, and there's not too many others.
I forgot about that, and you posted that, and I remember that.
Tie game, UNI, Texas A&M.
Rip had one.
Oh, but there's 1.9 seconds left, and UNI's throwing the ball out of bounds. We've seen this before. They're going to win on a half-court shot.
And it wasn't a game winner, but the balls that Mr. Farouk Manesh showed against Kansas with a couple minutes left, instead of running clock up 5 or 6, he says, no, I'm going to make this 3, and the game's going to be done. So they tied it at 71 here. They tied it at 71.
They pinned Washpin in the corner, and he tried to chuck it off the A&M guy, and instead just bouncing a nice, easy layup.
Marcus Traxler in the lounge here. Are you watching this? M. Traxler DDS. We got 2 of you. Larry and Marcus in the lounge. He's talking. We can't. Anybody else hear this, man?
Nope, can't hear.
Got to redo it.
Hear Traxler.
Redo it. So 1.9 seconds left. They throw it in. He gets caught in the corner. I don't know if they had
know that Texas A&M is on a 14-2 run in the last 31 seconds. That's how you can lose games.
Did Northern Iowa have a timeout?
Yep.
Why did they not use it?
Don't know.
Good question.
So they call a timeout right here. So they were up, 9 points here with a couple minutes to go. Larry, are you here? No. Nope. Not.
Oh!
Don't tell me I'm just behind here. I assume he didn't make it. Have they thrown it in yet?
I won't tell you.
Yes, they have.
The result has happened regardless of which way it went.
They throw it in. They get it. Half-court shot. Close enough. Overtime, men. We go to overtime. And unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Traxler, do you have anything?
Traxler, take 3. Not good either.
With Traxler here, I can do my trivia question.
This is a struggle, Traxler. This is a struggle. So A&M has forced overtime. Really don't want to see that one.
One of my favorite NCAA March Madness meets social media things ever. A guy who I had not talked to in years, but I worked with him at a gas station a few years before that. He was a Kentucky fan and hated Kansas. And the second the 3-point shot went in, and I was on Facebook, and he updated his status to Rock Jock Farouk Manesh.
Yes.
And it's one of my top 5 favorite sports and Facebook smart aleck things ever.
Okay, well, yesterday, it was 27-6, Miami over Wichita State. I tweeted Seth Davis. I said, Miami, Florida, Sharpie. and then Wichita State built up a 42-41 lead. And I'm like, oh, that was a premature Sharpie tweet on my part.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Drax.
God damn it.
But we can't hear Krins.
Okay, we're back. Now we're back.
Only one of us can talk at a time.
Good.
Everybody else, the computer must not work. That's the rule.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Whoever's holding the magic marker is the only one who can talk. That's how Special Feelings Hour works.
Marcus
Yeah,
Drax.
You and I was out of timeout for that whole scenario.
They were, because they probably should have called one, and they didn't have any.
They didn't have any.
Down 12 with 44 seconds left. Are you shitting me?
Shit,
Shades of Maryland Duke from 15 years ago.
I mean, even if you do throw it in the corner, I mean, you should be able to hit the guy in the leg and not hit the floor with your pass.
It's very hard to score 12 points in 44 seconds with no other team out on the floor, let alone a team defending. Did they just miss all their goddamn free throws or what? I mean, my God.
They didn't even really get fouled. They kept turning it over. 4 turnovers in that 32-second span.
To get enough possessions to even have a chance.
You got to turn it over like you and I did.
Awful. We had said, Marcus, we got trivia on the way, so you're good for that.
Goddamn 2 hours I missed, and the show's still going. That's one of the things I like about this thing.
We were just about done, and if Northern Iowa would close this out, we would have been done.
All right.
Trivia's story.
Speaking of, so next week for the broadcast teams, I know Brian Anderson and Smitty is going to be doing one. I'm trying to figure out who, and of course Jim Nance, Bill Raftery, Grant Hill. Who are they going to pick out? Ian Eagle's got to do it. Then do you do Kevin Harlan?
Or Vern Lundquist.
I don't think. Yeah.
Is Vern not doing it this year, or is Kevin not? It's one of those two.
Bring back Chick Hearn.
I'm sure there's NBA games to be called, so that might mean Kevin Harlan's odd man out.
Or are they going to do that on TNT next week?
He's not carrying any games.
Tuesday night games, NBA, TNT. So there's that. I'm sure
Real
Kevin
quick,
Harlan
before
has
we
20
start
games
trivia.
called tomorrow.
Before we start trivia, Traxler, back me up on how unimpressive the shot was. Other than the fact that he made a half-court shot, how unimpressive everything else about it was.
He did bank it. There wasn't much defense for it being a half-court shot. And, I mean, the celebration, this is one of the problems we're having with celebrations these days, especially like when something amazing happens at the end of the game, is everybody kind of does their own thing. And so, like, if you look at the UNI video, like 10 guys are doing their own little thing, and it's just not as cool as like everybody dogpiling on somebody, or like guys when George Mason won and everybody jumped up on the scores table, like that was awesome. But when everybody's doing their own thing, that's not as cool. So,
like, if honestly, if I could be honest for a second.
No, you can't be.
You're
honest.
never honest.
If your coach doesn't tear his Achilles, you go fuck yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Georgia State brought it to a different level last year. Their coach broke his leg. And
where's Ron Hunter this
He
year?
also had that time way back when he was at IUPUI, he like fell on the court and went nuts. So Ron Hunter just is the best coach for when it comes to celebrating.
And
What's
if
he
he
doing now?
doesn't,
He's on
if
the
he
pregame
doesn't
shows.
tear his Achilles last year and Georgia State wins the game, he's not doing the tournament coverage there for TBS down in the Atlanta studios this year.
There you go. Where else would you rather be? So the point guard is out.
Ron Hunter, noted hater of press
I mean,
conferences.
this as great, Charlie, as great as that half-court shot would be. I mean, this kind of negates all that. This would be equally, if not more. I would say this would be more unlikely than that half-court shot. Up 12 with less than a minute left.
This is the year of the comeback, though. Oh, that's a big three.
Unbelievable. So, Marcus, what do you think of this
Here I
tournament?
was making fun of you and I, having the worst games, being awful and only playing defense, and they're playing two of the best tournament games. I don't know about the two best, but certainly two of the better ones. So kudos to them.
Comeback here, overtime. Your thoughts on this tournament? Michigan State losing's the big thing. F. Austin with their lumberjack of a man was tremendous. Brackets are not very good, but they still have some teams left. I mean, besides Michigan State and West Virginia, I mean, all the teams are still out there. Kansas, North Carolina, Villanova, Oklahoma. So we still have heavy hitters here as Marcus is no longer here. So there you go.
Oh, see you, Marcus.
Hopefully he's back shortly. So all these small schools, Facebook thing. If you could make up your own college or university and mascot, what would your made-up college and mascot be? I am the River City University Dog Catchers. That's my school and mascot. With the logo being like an overweight white guy with a shirt that's too short, so his guts hanging out, and he's got like you can see like a tattoo while he's sitting there and just like bored and does not want to be doing any of that. That's
Where are you located at? In the South?
River City, so somewhere along the Mississippi. I don't know where. Let's say in Mississippi, along the Mississippi.
I always like
assuming I don't actually know. I'm assuming it goes through the state of Mississippi somewhere, though.
That's a fair assumption. The kid hit a 3. I'm about 20 seconds behind, so that's good. I've always been fond of the Teachers College of Indiana. Is what we've said for 5 years now. There's I like what Baltimore County, Maryland, whatever the hell it's called. I don't feel there's enough. I feel there's not enough big-time colleges named after counties. So I'd maybe go after a county, the Lincoln County Black Lives Matter or something like that. The immigrants. How about the immigrants? Or big
immigrants.
Or the whites. We got the blacks. We got the Indians. Name it the Jews.
Immigrants, or do you want to bring out like 6th grade social studies and be the indentured servants?
Do something with white people, because I don't think there's ever been, the Irish. Do a normal white person mascot.
So, like, you want to be the Wasps, but just actually be a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Yes. Very good. That is it. The Wasps. The Lincoln County Wasps. We have a winner here, folks.
I am going to say probably it's going to be someplace in the South. We'll probably go off the coast
noted lover of the South.
We'll go off the coast of North Carolina here, and we will say we are the Cape Cove Surfs.
Okay.
Just think it's not your normal surf. Let's just say that.
The Serbs?
The Surfs.
I like it.
With the B.
No, not Serbs. Surfs, like S-U-R-F. What?
Certs, like a breath mint? Certs?
Go. Dang it.
God damn.
Oh, God.
The stuff we talk about
Play
with
some
Traxler
defense, Northern Iowa.
How much time's on the clock right now?
21 seconds.
I got 40. So
Jesus Traxler's 5
I'm
seconds
watching on the March Madness thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't have the television's in the other room, so they fucked this down. They put up a shitty shot, 3-pointer, great. Because he made it, son of a bitch, he made it.
No, we'll just watch.
So this fucker makes a 3 here. Let's go, this big white bastard. Bam! Let him go. Let him score. Timeout. We got 100 of them.
I do like how there's not 100 timeouts this year.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I mean, we are not advocates of just dribbling around for 25 seconds and shooting a 25-footer.
I am.
I'm not. I mean, that's fucking stupid. We're not DeAndre Parks here trying to win the game. So drive to the basket when you can. If it's a tie game, 2-point game, let's get to the foul line here. Your thoughts, Mr. Traxler? Something we haven't talked about, state tournaments. Where were you at?
I spent Thursday and Friday, very small portions of the day in Sioux Falls. Mitchell Colonel girls basketball made it and did poorly. And then on Saturday, I went to Aberdeen, changed things up, went to the Class B boys, covered the 5th place game.
You ever been to Sioux Falls before?
Never been.
Shout out to my Dakota Valley Panthers who finished 3rd in Class A.
Good job, Panthers. Beat the Chamberlain Cubs, survived on a last-second 3 that went awry, so good job. Good job, Panthers. Way to go.
This was my first state tournament ever.
What?
I've never gone to a state tournament.
I would say that's amazing, but clearly you weren't missing out on much, so...
West Central, Josh Mueller, folks, 99-2000 back-to-back state champs. One of them I know was in Rapid City, so obviously I'm not going out there for that.
Mm.
Seem to recall West Central like a 7 or 8 seed in the mid-90s at the arena. I think I was in like the 4th or 5th grade. I actually got to watch it during class, so that was good.
That's good. That's nice.
It's very good.
What was the point you wanted to make there?
That was it.
Oh, I will give these Class B schools credit that they bring about a lot of people. There were a lot of people there last night. I was home to watch that part on TV. But like, you know, if you're Corsica Stickney and you got less than 100 kids in the whole school, all your people are there. So the whole town, all of both towns are there. That's good. So, and I also never realized how close Warner was to Aberdeen, and they of course were the top seed this year, undefeated, ended up winning the state championship. I mean, when you're only 10 minutes from Aberdeen, that's a pretty nice home court advantage to have. So, and it helps that they had a 6'10" guy, 6'10" in Class B. That's good.
There's usually not a lot of upsets in that deal, but Irene Wakanda, apparently they were a 7 seed. They got the title game.
They were poorly seeded because they should have been a lot higher. And Hardin County, number 2 seed. Oh, Jesus, man.
Finished 7th or 8th, whatever it was. 8th.
Yeah, they were 8th. They lost all 3 games. I know last year Hanson was like a 5 or a 6 or something. I think they were 5 and they won the whole thing. So it's not impossible
for we made it.
The upsets. But
let's see what you got here, Iowa. See what you got. You go to double overtime, I would suspect. Why is this stupid fucker shooting another half-court shot with a minute left?
It's his favorite shot.
4 seconds.
It would have been hilarious if the A&M guy would have made it just to be like, oh no, you shot that so early that now you're going to lose.
I was hoping that response.
I'm watching it right here.
He almost did it.
Unbelievable. I had said that Notre Dame Stephen F. Austin was my favorite game. Also, Purdue Little Rock was in the running there. I didn't see it. Northern Iowa, Texas, 2 nights ago was pretty good. VCU, Oklahoma was good this afternoon as well. Miami, Wichita State was good. Indiana, Kentucky was good. But has this game overtaken all of it? Is this the game of the tournament right here?
I would say this is
Oh
a
my
must.
God. Wisconsin just hits a 3.
So
I'm
we
not
got a
watching
deal here.
what's happening
Wisconsin
in that game.
Xavier coming down to the wire.
What's that on TBS?
Wisconsin Xavier. I got what is it? A tie game now? What do we got?
Yep. 11.7 seconds left. Wisconsin just drained a 3.
Hate you, Wisconsin.
Do we want to do my trivia question quick and then before
We got time here between the overtimes. Let's get ours, boys. Let's go.
Okay.
Please,
Well,
before
actually,
March,
should we wait
guys.
for Wisconsin for Xavier to win it here on the gun?
On the dunk.
I suppose I could turn it to that Xavier channel. Might as well.
I mean, you got only 11 seconds. Ain't gonna take that
Wisconsin.
long.
Look at that. Look at that chump's haircut. Please.
On Wisconsin.
No. Friends walked out of the room. You gotta watch this.
I think I picked Wisconsin to win this game, but I really hope they don't because I don't care.
Oh
Wisconsin.
no!
Like I said, I say.
Oh,
Everybody's
you're like farther ahead of me now. Now you're like 10 seconds ahead of me, Traxler. And I
One
agree.
day is always
That's
better.
what I wanted either.
Xavier brings it up here, me half hour behind. I'm sure it's not good. Xavier, oh fuck, block.
And Corinne's instant. He's heard all of us say it.
Like
I
I
don't know if something happens here because
Nothing happens.
no,
Wisconsin just
Cross
has
half
to
court.
take a leap and timeout.
the timeout. To make everything as painful as possible.
like one day is always better than the other, and Friday, Sunday was the day. Both days were tremendous. Just fucking
More painful, Wisconsin Pitt game or South Dakota State USD softball doubleheader, which is more
Oh
painful.
man.
How's the weather? How is the weather for this? Is it windy as fuck
60,
and 20 degrees? Or is it...
60, windy. Not super windy, but windy enough that you notice it and you don't like it.
Am I calling the game?
No.
What am I doing? Am I doing scoreboard or what am I doing here? Am I actually just watching it?
You're doing the half the time Charlie special at the SID office. You're there just in case they need you for something, so you're just watching it.
Yeah, it's
and
going to
not
be
doing
like
anything.
that's like a 4 or 5 hour commitment. So I'm going to go with Pitt, Wisconsin better. That's like a 2-hour thing, and it's a tournament game. So.
I respect that you thought it took it seriously and went by logic. I would probably come to the same conclusion.
Like if it's a single game, maybe if the weather's nice. If I'm actually doing something, then it's not that bad.
It's sunny out, and they don't have to use the heaters, but the wind's blowing at like 40 miles an hour.
And if the wind's blowing in your face, that gets all the dirt and,
Yeah.
and shit. So, what do you think of the courts, Marcus? We all like the courts.
I'll just wait until you guys.
Oh my! Never mind.
That
Well,
sounds
I'll
great.
let you guys experience. It happens. Traxler did a better job of it than I did.
I'm going to guess number 10. Shoots. Number 10 gets
Oh,
it.
Bill Murray. No,
Nope, not him. Is this a 2? Bang. That was a 3. Better go to the tape. Was his foot on the line? That could affect the...
It
was-
I
was
thought
the
that Bill Murray also, and now I feel bad.
A Notre Dame, Wisconsin. One of them will be playing for the Final Four.
barf.
I will probably
So
find
only-
something else to do with that game.
So only 2 of the 2 seeds make the second week. Xavier, and a bad couple of weeks for Xavier.
Did you know that it's never happened where all 4 2 seeds make it to the Sweet 16?
Really? Are you shitting me?
I think that's what I saw.
How? Let's go back
Or all
to
but
this
like,
surprising game.
but twice. It doesn't happen very often at all.
How? I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult, for Christ's sake. It really shouldn't be.
The courts, I like. What I would like to see them do next year is incorporate the colors of the host team or whatever normally plays in this arena
What about a conference?
or the conference into the court. So like they're playing Oklahoma City, use the Thunder's colors for the outside. And then what was the other example? Like in Raleigh,
Des Moines? No.
I don't know what you do in Des Moines, but like Raleigh, that's North Carolina State, so use red on the side so that it's somewhat consistent with the design that they want, but also it's something where like you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, because that's what people loved about the old courts is that they could just look at it and know right away what game they were watching.
Like right here. Charlie had a trivia question. Name the 8-15 seeds to win. And one of them was Hampton and Iowa State. And if I ask you where that game was at, you will say
Boise, Idaho, Taco Bell Arena.
because you can know the court.
Because you got the pinwheel court.
And I've never really...
It will be back in Boise in 3 years.
Show me something, Boise. Show me something.
Come on, Boise, get the blue and the orange out and let's get it done.
Also, ACC obviously done very well. Pac-12 has not done well. So you would hope they could win at least 1 or 2 of the games. They won none of the games. You want to do a trivia here while we watch another timeout?
Yep.
You want to do that here quick?
Yep, do this here. We can wrap it up.
Okay.
One more
All
and we'll
right.
wrap it up.
There are 23 schools women's program to the NCAA tournament this year.
What happened, men and women?
Men and women, yep. So
Okay.
give me, for 1 point, the school, and then I will give you a half a point for the seed.
Oh, shit.
Jesus Christ.
So, schools women's basketball this year.
Okay.
So, whenever, what do we go in here now? We'll go Charlie, Marcus, Travis.
So I will say Connecticut.
Okay.
And you want the seed for both of them?
I want the seed for both, so a half a point for each one.
Women's at all. I'm assuming UConn's a 1 seed, though.
Yep.
And the men were either an 8 or a 9 and played Colorado. I'm going to say they were a 9.
You are correct. And actually, I'm just going to say just a full point each for the seed. So you got 3 that round.
Yeah, they don't want to make the math.
So a half point for each seed?
No, I 1 point for each seed that you get correct.
Shouldn't we get, since women don't make as much as men, shouldn't we get fewer points for guessing the women?
Yeah, it should be 0.66 for the women's seeds because they make
2/3 of a point. 2/3 of a point for women. Honestly. 3 for Noah and I were short.
How did you miss
Not
that?
good.
Okay.
Not good.
Charlie, you are correct. Marcus.
Well, I am not going to overthink this. I will take South Dakota State, and they are a 12. They were a 12 in the men's tournament, and they are a 12 in the women's tournament.
And because you use proper grammar and saying they are out on the men's side, you will get an extra point for that.
I am in the grammar business, so it's kind of important.
You are correct. So you have 3 points. Travis.
Green Bay made it. The men were a 14. The women were a 10.
Correct.
I contest that the women got boned. They got screwed. Shouldn't have had to play Tennessee in the first round.
That's
Beat
right.
'em.
I picked them in my bracket, and that didn't go so hot.
Although, I mean, it was on a neutral floor in the first round, so I guess that's about as good as you're going to get.
Wait a second, just so I can make sure I get them all and we don't say them again.
Why are you fouling?
North
Sorry,
A&M?
I have to know the TV.
That's pretty dumb. Okay, Charlie.
Well, I'm just going to stick with something I know because I don't know nearly as much about the women's. I will say Miami made it in both. The men were a 3 seed and the women were a 5 seed.
Correct.
Good stuff right there.
I did not really take a gander at that women's bracket all that tough.
I'm up.
Yep.
I will take Michigan State, and the men were a 2, the women were a 4.
Correct.
Who is this?
Michigan State.
If this goes into third overtime, does this now become one of the all-time great games?
Yes.
It becomes one of the all-time somethings.
All-time something's here.
Didn't Arizona and Gonzaga go like 2 or 3 overtimes in the second round a while ago?
Seems right.
All right. Do we want to just pause here?
I'll think of
Travis,
something.
no, Travis, you can do yours, and then we'll pause for
Station ID? Let's see here. Who made it? Notre Dame made it. The women were a 1. The men are a 6.
Yep. And we will take a short commercial break here. More after this. You are
Play a song for you?
Yeah, South Dakota.
Jesus
Good, because
Christ.
Notre Dame was the last one that I knew for sure was in both, and I got to think now to
I
come
don't
up
think,
with women's team that I know made it.
I know. See, this was a bit of a hard one here, but I thought, you know what, we're in the spirit of March Madness.
This is March, man. It ain't supposed to be easy. I mean, Northern Iowa with just a terrible possession there a minute ago, where the guy did just dribble it for 15 seconds and fired up a shot. So
Or I absolutely hate when guys throw up hero shots unless they're like truly a fantastic player.
like, isn't this UNI's like fourth best player, and he's trying to run the show here?
He's certainly not one of their two best players.
This is just garbage. Like,
And
what
then
is he doing?
A&M misses free throw, so that's great.
Like, if you're not a hero, don't be a hero. That's how the way I look at it.
Well, you know, whenever the Chicago Bulls were really good, they wanted to make sure that Bill wins at the end of the game.
Also, Traxler next week, National League baseball preview. National League.
Time for
A
me
more
to go out and buy the
painful-
magazines. Got to buy the magazines. Get ready. I don't know any of the players.
The internet may have something. I think.
I don't think so. It's
No.
it's very short on baseball stuff, baseball writing. So I'm
They're
not
going to
sure.
update the internet. They're going to update the internet this week or not?
It's like
It's
a once every 3 month thing. It's not ideal.
And they can't
Well,
put
I
anything
assume,
on the internet if it isn't true.
So I assume their point guard fouled out here.
Yes.
Yeah, Washburn, yeah, he gone.
Flat
Go.
top Johnson.
A
got me
more
fired
painful,
up.
closer to home example. Kind of like if you're South Dakota State, you probably don't want Keaton Moffitt taking care of things at the end of the game.
Oof.
Yeah, your thoughts on the SDSU game here, Marcus? Again, down 15, 18 points, 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go, making the big comeback. Keaton Moffitt's got to call a timeout. You got to call a timeout.
Yeah, I mean, we can complain all we want about the way the end of the game happened, and I mean, there's plenty to complain about. I don't think the foul against Marshall is one of those things, but you can't dig yourself that kind of hole in the first half in the NCAA tournament as a 12 seed and think you're going to win the game. And if they would have played a little bit better in the first half, they wouldn't have had to come so far back. And it's. Charlie and I, we were kind of talking on the chat that it was almost worse that they made the big comeback or almost pulled it all off because just having that last possession go to shit was pretty tough to watch. So, I mean, it feels like another one of those. I know Stacken kind of mentioned it, that if they didn't get to the NCAA tournament with this group of guys, that it would be a letdown. And when they're in that situation. And it's none of those guys that were really in it. I mean, Parks has the ball go right through his hands, but we all saw him in the Summit League Championship. I felt like that last year. That was probably going to be the shot he got off, another flat line 25-foot duck. So I just, they had a really good team, and I wish they would have been able to put a little bit more together and maybe pull that upset. But, it's not supposed to happen when you're the 12. It's not supposed to happen. So, I'll be interested to see it. I know David is in the camp of this being a huge offseason for SDSU, so I'm very curious to see how it all pans out.
Well, what do you mean and how huge? Like in terms of the recruiting trail, are they getting?
Yeah, I mean, are they gonna get a transfer or two, or how? I mean, how exactly are they gonna replace these guards? I don't see Tevin King really being your focal point as a guard. Now he's young, so maybe he will be. But I just feel like they're missing a piece. I mean, Telling Houston isn't your guy. I mean, obviously Mike Dahm is going to be the guy they're going to lean on in the future. But I'm looking at a bona fide point guard, and I don't really see it on their roster right now.
I agree.
Because
You
they
gonna go
need
two
somebody to
forwards
get down.
next year, or stick with a 4-guard lineup.
Let's try the two forwards. Let's get two forwards
Nice.
in there.
Let's go big. And the women won. I think this is the first time since the first year that everybody thought that they're probably going to win. or like, yeah, they should win this game, and it would have been a big disappointment if they didn't, because I think they're better. They're better than Miami.
I definitely feel like, and Miami's coach kind of admitted it, that when they saw SDSU, they're like, that's not who we wanted to see. So, I guess a lot of credit to the Jacks for actually finishing the game out and playing with the lead. Everybody can say that they thought they were going to win, and in the last few years, SDSU's had their cracks. I mean, Oregon State, I didn't realize until I reread the story about the game last year, but they led in the second half, and kind of the same scenario has happened before, and they closed it out and made the plays. So I would give them some credit. I have no idea how the game tomorrow night's going to go. I don't think they're going to win, probably, but it's Stanford. I mean, it's a 4 seed. It's not like they were playing Baylor a couple years ago, so where they were a 2 seed. So I would say, anything could happen, and if SDSU shoots the lights out, they're going to be fine. So let's hope that maybe happens.
This game's done. A&M. Get some.
Northern Iowa, fadeaway, no good. Rebound. A&M, free throws.
Big collapse by the Panthers.
Show Kurt Warner. Show him. Show Kurt Warner.
I got a number written down here of what seed they probably should be, SDSU, based on how good they are, based on the eyeball test, based on who they should beat and who they shouldn't beat.
Yeah.
Well, I got a number written down here for seed.
You watch a lot of women's college hoops, huh?
No, just watch them.
Okay.
And we're all going to guess, and then you're going to show us the seed? Like backroom business meeting style where you're sliding numbers? I like it.
A lot of ice cream.
What do you think of that number? What do you think of that number there? Yeah.
My guess is a 9.
I'm going to guess 9.
I put down a 7.
I will put a 6.
I put down a 7. Based on Miami's ranked 20th or so, and I feel like I said earlier, I feel like SDSU, any team ranked 20 to 25th and worse, I think they can compete with that team no problem on a neutral floor. So,
one thing to consider with Stanford is they lost early in their conference championship or conference tournament, and they probably dropped a seed or 2 because of that. So maybe this is a team that's maybe Miami should have been seeded lower, and maybe Stanford's a team that actually should be higher. So we'll see how this all pans out, but certainly a terrific challenge for SDSU.
if you remember anything from the 2010 tournament, for me at least, it was Northern Iowa beating the 1 seed in the favorite Kansas, and I'll remember the 2016 tournament as the year Northern Iowa hit the half-court shot and then shit themselves versus Texas A&M.
It's funny because when I was driving home here, I was thinking about Northern Iowa winning and being in the Sweet 16, and I'm like, well, maybe they're VCU, Butler, they get to the Final Four, Wichita State, and then they just totally collapse and they're out of the tournament altogether. So, congrats to the Panthers, great effort.
And looks like in the West region, all top 4 seeds will get it, as long as Oregon beats St. Joe's here. So. Trivia.
Yeah. Let's
Oh,
go.
man, I forgot to keep thinking about women's schools.
All right.
Okay, I know at a certain point in time, this team was good at women's basketball. I don't know if they still are, and I at least know their men made the tournament. I will guess the Duke Blue Devils.
No.
Well,
Now, we'll let you just keep going back in there. Let's say there are 23 answers here, so we'll go through 7 rounds each, so you can keep guessing and try and earn points.
What if he doesn't want to keep guessing?
Well, then he's going to be stuck on 6 points. No, valiant effort. Okay, Marcus.
I will go with Chattanooga. And Chattanooga was a 12 in the men's tournament and a 12 in the women's tournament.
Correct.
I'm taking the cues because I always take the cues.
Never take the cues.
They were a 10 seed for the men, and they are a 4 seed for the women. Both.
Coming to Sioux Falls.
Correct? Now, you aren't looking at the bracket, are you? Do I have to come over there?
No.
No.
My bracket's on the floor. I got my little Kindle out here looking at Twitter.
Pants on the ground.
Believe me, I have very few teams in the back pocket here. So.
All right, Charlie.
I am back to picking teams that I know at times have been good at women's basketball, and I at least know they made the men's tournament. I am going to guess the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Nope.
Both of them have fallen off the map in women's basketball.
Okay, so I'm going to spoil this just now because he's already said 2 of the 3 teams. But this is like the first time in 35 years that Duke, North Carolina, and NC State, all good women's programs, have not made the tournament. So don't say NC State.
All right,
So
I will not.
Why was Bill Murray with Xavier?
His son is an assistant on the team.
Wow.
Seems like a good gig if you can get it.
Doug Traxler, want me to give a Doug Traxler update?
What's he have to say?
This Northern Iowa A&M game is a great example of why we love this time of the year. Hashtag March Madness with the brackets. Hashtag Aggie Hoops. Hashtag Panthers. Hashtag Overtime. My made-up hashtag of Brenda Warner. You did not put Brenda Warner in the hashtags.
That's a lot of hashtags for my old pa. Doesn't normally put that many in there. Look at the sadness.
This game was on True TV. Good job. The one game they get outside of the opening round. Best game of the deal.
They made it count. That'll help. That'll help when it comes sweeps week.
Good job, True TV.
Fantastic. Okay, Barkus, you want another go at this here?
Sure do. I will take Maryland, and the Terrapins were a 5 in the men's tournament. They were a 2 in the female bracket.
Yeah, that sounds accurate.
Good.
I'll take Kentucky and say they were both 4 seeds.
Kentucky, you're only going to get 2 points for this one here. They are a 3 seed on the women's side.
The women, they should have been a 4.
Yeah, for you to be correct.
Should have been an 8.
Boy, there are a lot of A&M fans that are just crying their eyes out. And this was before overtime. Okay, Charlie?
Okay, let's see. See if I can get past 6 points. I'm going to slowly delay things while I'm thinking about it.
Drag it out.
And go with... I'm going to say... even though it's not worked the last 2 times, I'm going to stick with my formula. I know the men's team is in, and I know they have been good at women's basketball. I will guess Baylor.
Yep.
Ooh, very good.
That's not bad.
Okay, the Baylor men were a 5 seed. The women, I'm going to guess they were a 2 seed.
No, they are a 1 seed. But you do get 2 points.
I wish that they put Baylor in UConn's bracket every year just to see Kim Mulkey just lose her mind in anger. My turn?
Yep.
I'll take Indiana.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually blanking on what their men's seed was. Were they 4?
No.
And then their women's were a 9.
Yep, you get 2 points. The Indiana men were a 5.
Okay, all right. They played Chattanooga, right?
The men did, yes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Oregon State, women were a 2, men were a 7.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Because I remember
Bada
Oregon
boom.
State, and I was surprised they were 2.
Baba Booey.
2 rounds left here. Charlie, barring a miracle here, it would seem that you are out of this. In fact, yes, but you could still play for some great cash prizes. That Marcus will
Cash. Give me the cash.
You see this little white guy on the A&M bench here going nuts during that comeback?
Who was that?
There's a vine on Twitter by your Spencer Hall guy.
Yeah, I like him.
That's a hell of a vine here. This
Good vine. Some vines are good, some vines are bad. That's good.
My favorite Vine I'd seen recently was the one of the UNI half-court shot that was from the crowd perspective. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, that was good.
I hadn't updated Twitter in 30 minutes. I had 167 tweets. It seems like a lot.
Who did some quarterback sign? Some backup quarterback sign with the Jets?
Christian Ponder.
Is that why?
Derek Anderson, third-string quarterback, signed a 2-year, $12 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals.
It's a good deal for him. Charlie?
Yep. Oh, yeah, that's my turn. I will guess the Southern California Trojans.
Let's see here. I don't believe that is correct.
They've fallen a long way since Cheryl Miller.
All right, Marcus.
I will take Middle 10 State.
Go to hell.
I know they were 15 in the men's tournament and they were 12 in the women's.
Yep. 3 points for you. Travis, didn't you work at that school? If I saw a tweet there or something.
Yeah,
on
I think somebody got their Tennessee States wrong there. Somebody didn't quite know what the hell was going on.
Let's go, Vandy.
Close enough. They're all there. South Dakota State, San Diego State, Tennessee State, Middle Tennessee State,
Go
Belmont,
Houston Oilers.
Austin P. They're all the same.
Go Racers, Murray State.
Go black people, yeah.
Travis, you got a guess here?
I'll use the Hildebrand philosophy here. Xavier's pretty good with the women. They were a 2 with the men, and I'll say they were 3 with the women.
I don't believe Xavier is in this at all.
They didn't even make the whole fucking tournament.
Nope.
They had a couple of Amazons there a couple years ago. My God.
You know, that's how I felt when I found out that neither Duke or North Carolina were in the women's tournament.
Dog shit.
Squadouche for you, and we have 1 round left.
So I get 2 points.
Why? Why do you get 2 points?
Because the Xavier men were a 2 seed?
No,
you got to get the team right.
They have to both make the tournament for to be on the list.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's no points. You ain't getting any points.
This will affect me very much. What I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna come in and change tires right away. I'm gonna take a lap for my 5 bonus points for leading a lap.
Okay. Charlie, your last guess.
Jeez. I'm going to go. Let's say.
Can I guess O'Gorman?
I'm going to say Florida Gulf Coast.
No.
Can I guess O'Gorman?
No.
You can.
Marcus.
I will go with Oklahoma. And I know they were a 2 in the men's tournament, and I will say they were a 3 or 4 in the women's tournament.
Who did you say now?
Oklahoma.
All right, and what was for the women?
4.
You're going to get 2 points. They were 6.
All right.
There's 3 teams left, and this is the final one?
Well, no, but I'm only going to go 7 rounds because if you were to have gone all the way across, it would have been 21. We couldn't have carryover.
So there's 3 teams or something. No, there's some teams.
There are. How many teams we got left?
How many points am I behind?
You can't catch up. Marcus got 19 points. You are at 17. No, you're at.
Ooh!
No, you aren't there.
14?
You're at 16. It looks like.
I can tie him. Can I not tie him?
You can tie, I guess.
Oh, I gotta better fucking think now.
And how many points does Charlie have?
5.
Charlie, you're at 8.
Oh, man.
Double or nothing.
Let's see. If I can
Double or
fucking
nothing to still finish in third.
figure out a fucking women's team here. Oh, balls. This should be this can be the cliffhanger for next week. Well, I figure.
Someone hangs on to watch this far and then you don't even finish it off.
Don't guess Tennessee. Their men didn't make it.
Riveting live chat here.
We are doing it live, folks.
Texas women were the men for Texas were a 6. The women were a 4.
So close, they were a 2.
Oh. This is
Marcus is the winner.
one of the teams is right here, St. Joe's. They both made it.
Did they really?
Their women made it, I'm pretty sure.
I don't think they did.
What?
See, now you know how I feel when you're guessing teams that were in the women but didn't.
I will look to verify, but I'm pretty sure that's not accurate.
It's dog shit is what it is.
The teams I know that were not said. Seton Hall, the 6, the women in 8. Hawaii, 13 for the men.
That's not a real state.
14 for the women.
States before 1950 only.
Oh, sorry. Texas A&M, 3 seed for the men, 4 for the women. West Virginia, 3 for the men, 6 for the women. Buffalo, both the men and women were 14 seeds.
Go Bulls.
Purdue, a 5 seed for the men, 11 for the women. And Iona, 13 seed for the men, 15 seed for the women.
Very good.
Go Bulls.
Sports Lounge 161 in the books. Northern Iowa game in progress as the show happened. Very good, Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa and Michigan State losing the story of the tournament. Unbelievable. Wisconsin a buzzer beater. Unbelievable. One of the best tournaments in quite some time.
Every year.
The best
At least
tournament
through the first 4 days.
This is the best. This is right. There you go. Next week, Final Four.
No better sporting event.
Huh?
No better sporting event known than the NCAA men's basketball
This is the
tournament.
best. I don't even know what's second. But this is number 1, 2, and 3. Next week, Final Four.
Can I just say one thing real fast?
Yes.
We're playing this game in Spokane, and Idaho is the host school. Shouldn't the court be black and like a dirty brown, orange, or brown color? I think it'd be great.
Inside a dome that looks like it's going to cave in and kill everybody.
Yes.
How far away is Idaho's campus from Spokane?
Like 20
Probably
miles.
like,
It's
yeah.
not bad. It's very good.
So really, shouldn't Idaho and Gonzaga
Pullman
play
is closer, but they're Washington State's not the host for some reason. So
Done. Next week, National League preview. And Final Four. We will know who the Final Four is. Go around the horn. Charlie, what's it going to be?
Well, since I've done awful predicting so far, I suppose I can't do any worse. Because I had Michigan State winning the whole thing. I'm going to say North Carolina. I'm not picking Virginia, so I guess Gonzaga. Gonzaga's in that region, right?
Yes.
North Carolina, Gonzaga. I'll stick with Kansas. You know what? I'll stick with Oklahoma. I had Kansas and Oklahoma in the Final Four. Even though I'm doing awful, I'm going to stick with those two teams.
Marcus.
North Carolina, Oklahoma, Villanova, and I don't know, Virginia, Iowa State. The winner of Virginia, Iowa State's going to the Final Four.
It's a very stacking-like pick. Stacking.
No.
Well, you would say I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't say I wouldn't be surprised.
You wouldn't
You're
be surprised.
right, you can't say that because I have that legally trademarked.
No,
you, would not, you wouldn't be surprised if Virginia and Iowa State play and one of them win.
That's right. I think there's going to be a loser in that game, too.
Okay, we'll have to watch that and see.
And there's got to be a winner then involved as well.
Maybe.
Or it could be like the people who had to watch Pittsburgh and Wisconsin.
Clearly, you've never watched two hobos fight before, Stacking.
I got Kansas, North Carolina, Iowa State, and Texas A&M.
Really, I was stunned. People picking A&M for this Final Four, and I'm still baffled by that.
They're not even supposed to be in the Sweet 16.
So we get A&M in Oklahoma, classic Big 12 game.
And if fucking Baylor didn't fuck it up, god damn it, I could have been there too. North Carolina, I picked them to win. So if I win money in Stacken's bracket, it'll be because they won. So I'll stay with them. On the other side, I'll stay with Kansas, and I'll also stay with Oregon. I have 3 of my 4 left, and I hate Virginia. They're pieces of shit. So I'll go with
They're going to make it.
Gonzaga. Beat Gonzaga. Do it. Show me something. You want to show me something, Virginia? Beat Iowa State. Beat Gonzaga. Then I'll be a believer.
I did not realize that.
Is that the Midwest region?
Yes.
Never in all the years of filling out a bracket have I ever had something that was like as red as when the Nile turned to blood as the Midwest region this year. I think in the Stack-In one and the Sports Lounge one, first round in the Midwest, I picked 2 games correctly. And then those teams that I had winning, I had going to the Sweet 16, and they lost in the second round. So, like, I'm already don't have any teams left in the Midwest. I had Michigan State and Purdue in the Elite Eight because I'm an idiot.
I'm 5-8 in that region with 1 team left, Virginia to win 1 more. So
I really thought that when Michigan State lost, that would open it up for Utah to make a serious run, and they just get BF'd, if you know what I mean, by Gonzaga. So.
That'll wrap it up.
It's like those classic Looney Tunes wrapped, like they blindfolded him and gave him a cigarette before they laid him on the train tracks to die. That's basically what Gonzaga did to Utah, and also what Villanova did to Iowa today.
Good job, Iowa. Good job, Fran, you jackass. Way to go.
It's none of your business what fucking play we call it. None of your goddamn business. The hour and a half sports lounge turned into a 3-hour sports lounge.
We always keep it tight. Way to keep it tight.
Mainly because Northern Iowa shit themselves. So now whatever shows after this is going to be delayed a little bit. So there you go. Marcus was
no
here.
Carbonaro effect this week.
Nope. We're gonna have to,
Is True TV a thing?
We're going to say we're going to have reruns of Pawn Stars for the rest of the night.
Next week it won't be.
Charlie Hildebrand was here. Marcus Schweitzer was here.
The hardcore Pawn.
We'll save that for after midnight. Charlie was here. Marcus was here. Mr. Summit Lake, Nathan Stacken was here. What is this jacket here? What is this jacket I see?
We're never going to end the show. The show will never end.
Just the normal one.
Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that jacket at?
Where'd you get that jacket?
Where did you get the jacket?
I don't know. I think it's out of Leslie Crane's collection.
That fucking snake skin?
Sports Lounge next week. I wear a different hat every week. I'll wear another hat next week. 3-hour show. Lots of basketball.
Your only skill, wearing a new hat.
Good night, Vermilion.
Moscow.
Good night, Moscow.